Please find a seat fairly quickly to get started. Thank you.
Gotta get that coat off.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. There are seats down front, there are seats in the middle for anyone that's standing and wants a seat. There's still plenty at this point. I'd like to open the meeting and I'd like to recognize Chris Stanley to say a very short blessing of the meeting.
I guess I'd like to start with just having a moment of silence and expressing some gratitude for generally people who are willing to step forward and offer public service in this town. And as I look around, I see just a lot of pretty wonderful faces and a lot of people who are so involved in making our community as special as it is. And we're just a lucky small town in the North Country, and I hope through this meeting we have a sense of real community as we go forth. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chris. Okay, to follow our many years of tradition, I would like to now call for everyone to rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if you'd like to, sorry, that's it, but we're adjourned. One more traditional live again. A verse of God Bless America is in order. I want to hear everybody's voice, not mine. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you. Okay. Before we get started, I just want to make a couple of announcements. I'd like to read the results of your voting on Tuesday to make that official. For town office, John Allen for selectman with 287 votes. I declare him elected. For Town Financial Auditor, Dave Mason with 254 votes. I declare him elected. For Trustee of Trust Funds, Margaret Joan Davies with 276 votes. I declare her elected. Library Trustee, Ann Lee Doig with 268 votes. I declare her elected. Trustees of Cemeteries, Barbara Carrio with 295 votes. I declare her elected. The Treasurer, Kathleen Doherty with 162 votes. I declare her elected. Willis Kelly for Moderator with 268 votes. I declare him elected. Supervisor of the Checklist, Karen Amato with 280 votes. I declare her elected. And Karen Burton for Town Clerk Tax Collector with 289 votes. I declare her elected. For the school offices, School Moderator, Tim Scott with 284 votes. I declare him elected. For the member of the school board for 3 years, Keith Bradley at 257 votes. I declare him elected. For the member of the school board for 2 years, Jerry Dougherty for 242 votes. I declare him elected. For school clerk, it's to be determined. We did not have a candidate. It was write-ins, and I don't know that anybody's accepted yet. Or not, and the same issue with school treasurer to be determined. For the articles that were voted on by ballot, Articles 2, the yeses with 252, the noes 62, to declare that article passed. Article 3, the yeses 283, the noes were 29, to declare that article passed. Article 4, the yeses 279, the noes 32, I declare that article passed. And Article 5, yeses 300, noes 16, I declare that article passed. Okay, before we get started, I just would like to ask everybody to be courteous and polite. And if you have any questions or comments or anything of that nature, you will direct those questions, comments to the moderator. Anyone that needs an answer, that answer will be directed through the moderator. I don't want people going back and forth to each other. I'm only going to allow one person at a time to speak, and I'll give everybody an ample time to speak on an article to an extent. And if someone has already spoken, I'd like to see if there's anyone that hasn't spoken on it before I respond back to that person to allow them a second opportunity. I will give everybody a fair and equal opportunity as best I can. I am going to ask for a motion, excuse me, before I do that, I'm going to recognize one of the selectmen for a quick message. John?
Just a quick announcement, we recently received a generous donation for a fine bench that we're going to put outside the offices for people to sit who are waiting. And we're going to donate that to the memories of Arthur Fernald and Mike Clemens. So eventually we'll get a plaque and things to put up there for those guys, and it's a memory for those guys who have obviously served a long time for our town and obviously deserve that. Thank you very much.
I would like to entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the entire warrant, because I will be reading each article before we vote on them. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any question? So voted. Thank you. Okay. All right, moving right on. Okay, Article 6. Okay, Article 6. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the selectmen's recommended operating budget of the town in the amount of $1,908,998, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately. See the 2014 budget. Selectmen are in favor. I'm going to need a motion in a second, but before you all jump to conclusions, that budget will be voted on in its entirety, but we will take questions and suggestions by category as we go down through before we call for the vote. Is there a motion?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Okay. discussion. And if you turn to the yellow pages of your budget, of your warrant, on page 85, we will start there, and I will ask for questions as we go by category. Jerry?
I have an amendment to the bottom line of that.
Okay, do you want to insert that at this time, or do you want to
Yes.
wait till we get to the line?
No, I think it probably,
That's fine, exactly. Do we have a
I'll read it and then see if it gets seconded. To see if the town will raise and appropriate 1892498 for the operating budget. Said changes come from reducing planning, zoning 12.5, master plan build-out 3,000, fireworks 1,000. The idea here is that these numbers are duplicated other places in the warrant. I'll let the selectmen explain it.
Do I have a second to the amendment?
Second.
Okay, there's an amendment that's been made and seconded. Now, we can discuss every different category, but I'll remind you, as we've done many years, when we call for the vote, you will be voting on the bottom line, and that will be the amended line, not a specific line item within the operating budget, but the intent of the amendment will obviously direct the selectmen to follow where they're going to take that money from.
Do you want the wording of the amendment?
Yeah, why don't we right now, we'll start. It's gonna be on the bottom line, but we'll just do it now and get it over. Does everybody understand how that works?
No.
Okay. You can amend up or down the total article. Any area that you want to see an increase or a decrease is only a recommendation to the selectmen. The selectmen have the authority by statute to move those monies as they feel necessary, all the time trying to stay within the total bottom line. Do you understand that? So this amendment is amending the bottom line, and it's intended to reduce the budget, because in that total budget, it's apparently in two different places.
It's at 3 different places.
Three different
It's a total of 16.5.
Okay,
Could you have them repeat the areas that he's removing?
I'll let the selectmen.
okay. I'm going to read the amendment first, just so everybody's clear on it. Does everybody understand how this is going to work? I'm sure there's going to be questions as we go down through this. But an example, if somebody wants to give John Smith or Mickey Mouse a bigger raise or a smaller raise, for example, in there, it's advisory only. The amendment up or down to this entire budget is on the bottom line, and it's up to the discretion of the selectmen how they adjust up or down that amount. I just want to be clear on that. We've had many stumbling blocks on that in the past, and that is by statute the way it works. Okay? The amendment as proposed, to see if the town will raise and appropriate $1,892,498 for the operating budget. Said changes come from reducing planning and zoning, $12,500 for the master plan build-out, $3,000 for fireworks, and $1,000 for beautification. So the amendment is actually asking to reduce that bottom line that's being asked to appropriate. But we will only do it at the bottom line when we get there. So, is everybody clear on that? I'm probably confusing you already.
Can you explain to us where the duplication is, or the
Sure.
duplication?
Page 86, master plan build out. Betsy, we covered those funds for the master plan build out, and it looked under 2014 was $12,500 for the master plan, which obviously is a duplication that we've already had. We've already encumbered that fund, those funds.
Oh, I think the confusion that the planning board had was, we were asking if the money lapsed, or if it would stay for the planning board, and so you're saying that that $50,000 would stay available
Correct.
for
It was
the...
encumbered, it's still there.
Still there. So we don't need to budget for it.
Yep.
So that was a duplication source. The second one was the, on page 89, Parks and Recreation. We included the $3,000 for fireworks in our budget, so no longer do we need the warrant article for the $3,000, which is Article 34.
Well, no. Then leave that in, John.
Leave it on.
I'm not taking it out, I said, or the duplication of lines. And likewise, the reaction chamber beautification project is 1,000, we included that in our operation budget. And again, that's duplicated in Article 35. That's what
So,
16,000.
bottom line is these three separate dollar amounts that total the amended amount that Jerry has proposed, that's where he's recommending that those monies be deleted from. And by doing the bottom line adjustment, they hopefully will go with the will of the voters. Is everybody clear on that?
Bill, just to, again, to clarify, John, you say it's duplicated in there, so we'll be voting on the article in the warrant article, as opposed to,
Right.
because it used to be in the operating budget, you took it out of that.
Right.
So we're gonna take it out by, if we approve this amendment, we're taking it out of the operating budget, and then we'll either vote it up and down in the regular warrant article.
Right.
Ordinarily, it's been in the operating budget, it's just been approved of that, I guess, so now you're asking us to.
Actually, I would prefer the other, I would prefer to keep it in the operating budget. and
Well, but this, just to clarify that, this amendment is taking it out of the operating budget, in which case you vote it up or down in the warrant article.
Okay. We haven't voted on the amendment. I need to clarify something that I should have done before we started. There are a lot of people in the room that we may not necessarily have the correct names. It is required today that minutes be printed and that the name of an individual that speaks be reflected in the minutes. So when you have any questions or comments, can you please state your name and then go for it, just for the record?
Sarah Eastberg. Would it be better to vote down those three warrant articles and to leave this in the operating budget? Or two, whatever it is.
You want to comment on that? That's the will of the people, as to how they want to handle it. It's one way or the other. As I understand it right now, we're potentially raising it in the operating budget, and we're raising it again in special items.
The reason I did the amendment this way is because the selectmen recommended the different warrant articles. So the likelihood is that they will pass. And I thought it made more sense to leave it like that so that people could vote on what they knew they were voting on in the warrant articles. This way it makes it possible for them to pass and keep the numbers correct.
And we can put it in the budget next year.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I may not fully understand this correctly, but I think that's only, yeah, Ken Kimball.
I know Ken, yeah. For the record, thank you.
I believe in the first, which is to correct the fact that the planning board, or excuse me, planning board already has the money encumbered from last year, is actually should be treated differently than the second two, which are on special articles. And if I understood correctly, what the selectmen were recommending here is to keep the latter two in the budget, because you would not want to keep the first one in the budget, because it's already in the budget from last year.
I guess, Bill, to clarify for that, why,
Excuse me, hold on a second. Yes, go ahead.
why was it put in separate warrant articles? Who did that? I mean, the selectmen did that, so I guess my question would be, why did you do that?
I think it was just an oversight that it was in the operating budget at the same time.
So I guess, where at this point would you prefer it to be?
I agree with this, Jerry, that,
Jerry three.
that I think it would be, since we have recommended the warrant articles, we'll go with that and then make the adjustment next year. It's probably the best way to do it, just adjust the bottom line of the 16.5.
I know this is a little confusing, and I'm not going to call for a vote on this amendment until we get to the bottom line, okay? Because, well, we can do it now, but if we have other issues that make this go back and forth, it just,
I would prefer for clarity that it be done
right,
just.
that's fine.
Thank you.
The problem with that is we're only voting, but it's not a problem, okay, we can do that. Is there any other questions on this? This is kind of a little confusing issue here, but I think we've got it straightened out. Anyone else have any questions on that? Okay, so at this point in time, we will vote only on the amendment. Okay, we'll vote on the amendment. If the amendment passes, the bottom line will be amended, and we'll vote on the total bottom line when we get down through all the other categories. So really, if you are in favor of reducing the bottom line by $16,500, a yes vote on the amendment. If you're not in favor, it would be a no vote. It's only voting on the amendment, not the total budget. Is everyone clear on that? All those in favor of the amendment as proposed, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The amendment's voted. Sorry for the confusion. Yes, sir.
I'm Dave Mason. I'd like to speak to the change in the tax rate from last year, this year, if it's appropriate, covers the operating budget and all warrant articles. If not appropriate at this point, then when would it be appropriate to speak?
It's fine right now. I don't have a problem with that. Are you looking to speak to it, or are you looking to ask?
I'm looking to speak to it, and then perhaps.
Go ahead. Yeah, I have no problem with that. Because it will affect some people's thoughts on how they.
The proposed tax rate this year, which covers the warrant articles and the operating budget, represents an almost 35% increase in the municipal tax rate. So I, for one, I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but I mean, 35% is a pretty stiff increase. And perhaps I have to really look at things that we can cut out. We recommended everything, but the articles we recommended to the select. So obviously they feel these things are important, and yet we're in a position where we're thinking, boy, we've got to find things to cut because 35% is too much. And that's not actually what we ought to be thinking. And I'd like to explain why that is. The town has a fund, a general fund, and there are undesignated balances in that fund. Those balances are created because every year we overestimate our expenses and we underestimate our revenue, which is fine. It's a good conservative way to approach municipal budget. Those dollars, those undesignated fund balance, those are our tax dollars sitting there as a reserve. Last year, the selectmen used $454,000 of that unrestricted fund balance to stabilize the tax rate. And that's what it is. It's a tool to stabilize the tax rate. And the selectmen have some discretion. Last year, they took two relatively large warrant articles, which would be the kinds of things that wouldn't repeat as operating expenses, $200,000 on the roads, $100,000 for a piece of equipment, and they voted, the town meeting voted, to have that money taken from the unrestricted fund balance. That means it doesn't go on the tax rate. Then in October, when the tax rate was set by the selectmen, because the final tax rate is not set until it's set in October, they used another $147,000 or $137,000. It was a total of $400,000 to stabilize the tax rate. So we came with a $3.83 tax rate, which is fairly stable. Now they used $454,000 of $1.1 billion something, which left 600 and some odd thousand unrestricted fund balance. Now we have a $1,027,000 unrestricted fund balance. And the reason for that is, again, because every year we overestimate expenses, we underestimate revenue, so we build this fund balance. So obviously we have money there that could have been used in proposing the operating budget and these articles to not to present a 35% tax rate increase. It's too late now, I think. We can amend articles to say, well, let's take this out of the unrestricted fund balance. Perhaps I'm wrong. But they have one more opportunity, and that's in October. And I, for one, would like to know that the selectmen focus on this, and that it's their intention to do what they can to stabilize our tax rate in the area between, say, $3.80 and $3.95, as opposed to the $5.16 a thousand that's presented in the warrant article.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that explanation. One of the things that we kind of found out through the process here, and it is a learning curve for all of us, is that we did severely underestimate, we believe, our revenues for that, because we don't know what they're going to be. So, and that being said, hopefully we'll have some money coming in that is not listed on the sources of revenue on page 92. We have, like you said, over $1 million in our reserve fund, and I believe it's our intention, I can't speak for the board, but hopefully, like we did last October, we plan on returning some money. And the powers to be, try to keep that reserve fund at about somewhere around 12 to 15% is recommended. And that being said, if we went somewhere between 12 and 15%, that'd be roughly $430,000 of unreserved balance that we could throw into stabilizing the tax base. And that's, at least as far as my issue is, what I hope to do. So, it looks like it's a lot. It can be rectified in October.
Yeah, we dealt with the same issue last year where our unreserved fund balance was just, it was highly recommended that we lower it. And we lowered it to what was then explained to us was the upper level of recommended unreserved fund, which was 17%. And now we're getting financial advice that really bringing that down somewhere into the 12 to 15% area is probably a better idea. So we are looking to lower that. And it'll end up being somewhere, if we lowered it to 5 to 12%, that would represent $520,000. If we lowered it to the upper level of 15%, that still represents $382,000.
All right. I'll take a question on that, and then I'm going to get to the discussion. Go ahead.
Jerry Doherty. The use of that unreserved fund balance, so really should be considered for many years to come, and not necessarily just this fiscal year. And as Dave said, under his board, he really looked at that unreserved fund balance and anticipated what's going to happen not only in this fiscal year, but in the several fiscal years to come. So to take a big whack out of that in 1 year, how many years are you going to be able to stabilize the tax rate going out? Is it just this year? What happens in 2015? And when you artificially lower the tax rate for 2013, that's actually going to increase even further for 2014. So come this fall, we're not looking at just a $5.16 increase, we're actually looking at a $5.82 increase when you make up the tax rate difference because we're taxed twice a year. In July, the rate's going to be based on what we paid last year. So we'll have to make up the difference again in the fall. So you're looking at using a substantial portion of the unreserved fund balance this year if you wanted to keep our tax rate stable for this year. So I think that it is fair to look to reduce that unreserved fund balance, but you don't look at it for just this year. Look at it for the years that are going to be preceding.
All right. Yes.
Leslie Schmidt, I'm not sure if I completely follow, but a lot of the pages 90 and 91 is showing for last year appropriation from taxes 383 and to be raised this year to 516. Are you saying that, if we go to the warrant as is, with just what you said, the warrant articles be raised from unappropriated surpluses, does that mean that our tax rate will go to 516? That's on page 91.
It's an approximate number, right? It's not because we're going to have a real evaluation coming up. That could change the dynamics of it. The revenues, unanticipated revenues that come in. It's really hard to put an exact number on it, but that's our prediction.
Okay, I'm going to take David last comment, and I'm going to move on. Sure. Okay. I think the point has been out there that people need to think about this. There again, we need to get the article going forward, and if you want to make amendments to the bottom line, up or down, you have that ability to do so. I'm going to ask, excuse me, I'm sorry. This last one.
Quick question, Mark Benish. We had a tax anticipation note last year. We paid interest on, did I read that correctly? We borrowed money last year, $1,000 interest.
Sorry, how much?
$1,000, I saw somewhere in the book, I don't have my glasses right. Don't remember.
I don't have that.
I can answer that. Go ahead. We didn't borrow money last year.
Was the year before?
The year before, no. What that is saying is that we had money in the budget for it in case we needed to borrow money for it.
Got it, thank
So
you.
all money that we put in the budget was returned.
All right, moving on. We're gonna start making these by category, and we'll discuss those categories as we go. And again, if you wanna make an amendment, it will be on the bottom line. The first category is the general government selectmen. We're asking for $21,638. Is there any questions, comments? Okay. Second category, town clerk, $50,713. Is there any questions on that category?
Sarah Clemens, could you please answer why it's gone up?
Why has it gone up?
The town clerk, we were increasing the hours, making that a full-time position. Right now, it's kind of spotty with the hours. Wednesdays and Thursdays closed. We're trying to be more consistent and make the hours similar to what we had run in the office, and that requires making it a full-time position.
And so, could you please direct me as to what the wage was and what the wage will be? Is it an hourly rate?
I don't have that. Yeah, it's a per hour rate. The rate hasn't changed, per se.
It's the amount of hours,
The hours have.
the clerk's hours increased, the deputy clerk's hours decreased, and the net result is approximately $5,000 on the bottom line.
And this is just wage, it's not benefit.
It's actually from appropriated versus, it's actually, this is the way the benefits would come under a different category.
Okay.
Of all the town
So what would
employees.
be the increase in hours? I mean, are you talking 5 hours a week, 6 hours a week?
We had, a year ago at this time, the town clerk tax collector office was open 18 hours a week. This figure was arrived at through budgeting for the office to be open 28 hours a week to the public and allowing for another 7 hours per week for work for the town clerk tax collector to be done when the office hours were closed.
Thank you.
Okay?
Why has the deputy amount gone down so significantly?
Because we're hoping that the person who's working full-time won't need a deputy as much. That's the idea behind it.
And go ahead.
Penny Miller, I understand, and I'm not entirely sure if I'm correct on this, that the town clerk collects $3 surplus for every car registration. Is that money included in wages, or is it?
That's just revenue that goes under the fees, that doesn't go to the tax collector.
So is it, I'm sorry, it's revenue to the town, or
Revenue to the town.
tax collector?
Revenues to the town.
It's revenue to the town.
Are there any other questions on this category? Okay. Next category, financial administration.
We also wanted to entertain a conversation around the need to put, to move some money into that budget on page 85. We did not allow, that budget did not have $750, had no money, it was zeroed out under the election and registration expenses. And that's money we use to run elections. And we need to have some money in there in order to function with the elections. That was omitted. So our proposal would be to put $750 in that line item.
Are you asking for an amendment to that? Asking for someone to make a motion on amendment, or are you looking to tell people you're going to move or not even money from another area.
Well, the sticky part is that without any money in there at all, we don't have voter approval to spend money on election and registration expenses, even if we had $1.
It's not in there.
Right.
Yes, it's not in there.
It's supposed to have at least $1 in there. There's no money technically.
Yes, that's right.
All right, we got it. So I'm hearing that the selectmen are asking for a motion to amend this, another bottom line amendment to increase their category of town clerk by $750. Is anyone?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
I have a question.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any questions about that amendment? And I'm going to recognize the clerk.
I was instructed according to the laws that are for voting, the manuals, is that the cost and any expenses for any election is the duty and the responsibilities of the selectman's office. Therefore, that is the reason why we removed it from that line item. It previously always was in the operating budget of the selectman's office. That's why I removed it.
All right. Are there any other questions on the amendment? Hearing none, we're voting on the amendment only, which will change the bottom line up this time, $750. Everybody understand?
Will it also fund that item?
It will also fund that, well, the selectmen's discretion, yes. Technically, yes. Whether or not it becomes a responsibility under the clerk or under the selectman, that's something they can work out with the DRA.
So on the structure saying that money is in the budget now?
I believe they are, that's basically, yes. They do not have that money in the budget, whether it's under the clerk or under the town office's expenses. They did not budget for that. Any other questions, Jerry?
It's not going in the town budget, it's going in the clerk's budget, is that correct?
But it's going in the total of this total
I understand
entire
that, but I
operating
meant,
budget.
you were sort of town budget, it's in the
Well,
clerk.
the 750 will go in that line, whether it's right or wrong is between the town, the
I understand
selectmen, and the Department of River Administration. Any other questions on the amendment? So we're voting on an amendment to increase the bottom line by $750. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
So voted. Okay, next category. Financial administration. Total of $86,564. Is there any discussion? Questions or comments? Yes.
I don't know if this is the right time to bring this up, but I was made aware that we had hired a town administrator, and she's not been here a year yet, and we've given her a 30% increase. So I just want, I know today we're voting for town clerk and for the police to get increases. So why is the town administrator not a vote? And why was she just given an increase?
Just confirm with the selectmen. The town clerk's salary was just to...
No, not the town administrator I'm talking about.
I understand, but you referred to the town clerk and the police department. I was just trying to explain. The town clerk's portion is in this total budget, but it was in the category under town clerk for wage. The police budget will be in a separate article discussed at that time. The town administrator's salaries, if you will, are incorporated within this category. So if you want to discuss that, this is the place to discuss it.
Yeah, that's what I asked.
You're saying, why isn't it in this? It is, the town administrator's salaries, up, down, or the same, are here, and this is the appropriate place to discuss it.
I know, my question was, okay, so the town administrator started less than a year ago.
must be
And was given a 30% increase before the town meeting occurred. Yet, if we give increases to other people, they're getting the increase today. No, in this budget.
We budgeted $80,115 last year for office wages in the town office. This year, our proposal is asking for $80,504. So we're asking for a $389 increase to run that office. What has been restructured in the town clerk tax collector's office is an increase in hours for one and a reduction in hours for the other. And that's also the way that the town administration office has been restructured. We've got a reduction in hours from the assistant, and then we've also ended up meeting our obligation to the town office administrator that was hired. We ended up hiring on the contingent of a 90-day review, and that's what we did, and that's when her salary was restructured at that time. Last year, we had asked for a salary of $40,102 for the office administrator, and this year, the salary is going to be paying out to $46,488, which is a 16% increase over what we asked for that position last year.
Does that answer your question?
It is, but I want to clarify, it's still a 30% increase over her starting rate, correct?
You know, like I said, we had an agreement when we hired that person and brought them on board that we were going to review that salary after 90 days.
It's a trial salary. If we gave them $10 and gave them $100, obviously that would look like a huge increase. And we started low, hoping for the 90-day trial period, and then at that time we reviewed the salary and made adjustments.
Okay. Pete?
Yeah. So, the
Please state your
administrative,
name to be.
B. Davis,
Thank you.
the administrative salary is $46,488.
That's.
Boy, that's a hell of a job. Plus benefits?
Is there any other? That's a comment. Is there questions? I think there was another couple of hands up. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Nancy Davis. I'm just trying to add up the numbers here, and it looks as though the two staff in the office combined with their benefits are making $143,000. And looking at Bartlett's town report, which is a significantly larger town, and it appears they're at $92,000. So I guess I don't know if I have everything on the Bartlett side, but it just seems high for a town the size of Jackson.
Are you asking that as a question or just offering that information?
I guess I'm asking.
I'm not trying to I want to make sure we question.
Yeah, I guess I'm asking the selectmen.
I'm sure they can respond to the Jackson side, that we're not here to discuss what Bartlett does or doesn't do. So.
We don't know what benefits they have.
The town office administrator in Bartlett, we did too, and we're told makes a salary of $50,000 a year, which is $4,000 more than the salary for our office administrator. Right? I mean, they don't have two full-time staff on board. The
Okay.
town was asked to take the assistant office administrator position from a part-time position to a full-time position about 2 or 3 years ago, and that's what the town voted to support. We reduced those hours because we really don't think we need 2 full-time 40-hour-a-week positions there.
I had a hand over here at one point. Yes.
Christine Crowe. Steps are the selectmen taking to try to find lower cost health insurance?
Shop. I mean, that's,
Just
Who do you call?
The insurance is, I'm going to ask you to bring that one up on the category where the actual insurance benefits are. I believe that's in,
Well, there's town health insurance here. in that
okay,
category.
excuse me, I thought it was in the other one. No, I apologize, go ahead. You understand her question?
We shop around, every year, every other year, we get the various carriers to give us quotes. I mean, and the bottom line is that, insurance has been going up for many years in just about every business. And we do our best to come up with the rates. I mean, the insurance, we're asking for a 15% contribution to everybody that wasn't grandfathered in when the town used to pay 100% of the health benefits. Now, the town pays 85% of the health benefits. We're trying to still be able to make that kind of a contribution with our staff. So every year we review the policies and do our best.
I would ask you to consider that we might not be able to afford to continue to pay 85%.
Is there anyone else that hasn't spoken on this category before I go back and stop? Yes.
Young
State
lady
your
here had
name,
a,
please. I know you, but a lot of people may not.
Bill Wogan.
Thank you.
A question she had is why are we discussing this under this category and the town clerk is being discussed by warrants? The town clerk is an elected position. These people are hired people. That's the
Okay, anybody else have any questions or comments that hasn't spoken yet at this point on this?
George Howard, what was the logic or the basis that you came up with this annual salary? Was it hours? Was it rate per hour? What was the basis of coming up with this number?
well, it's an hourly rate. I mean, it was, what we determined was fair for that particular position based on, other places in the area. And it was,
What was the hourly rate?
You got it. I don't have it.
They don't have the hourly wage at this point, but they can provide that for you. Any other questions from, not ignoring you, but as I said, there was a hand up over here, then Frank.
I may have,
Jake. Well,
Jeanette,
state your name, thank you.
I may have remembered your comment incorrectly, Bob. You said that there was a raise of 16% at some point?
from the 90-day.
Our town office administrator salary line item is up 16% over what we asked for a year ago at this meeting. The town office administrator salary with a 4% increase last year brought it up to $40,102. And this year, the breakdown on the office administrator salary has it at $46,488. That's a $6,385 increase, and that represents a 16% rate increase, although the budget is flat.
Okay, Frank was next, and then I'll.
How many hours,
Frank,
quick finish, how many hours does she work? And did you really say she got a 16% increase in her hourly rate?
16% increase in the wages, yeah.
Total wage is up 16%.
As opposed, not the rate, though.
They don't have the rate broken down at this point. That can be provided to you, but they don't have it at this point. Does that answer you?
And the first impression was how many hours a week?
Between 37 and a half and 40 hours a week.
Okay. Go ahead.
Betsy Harding. I just was wondering, I know Leslie Mallett has somewhere between 12 and 18 years experience, and I know the prior administrator had a good amount of experience. So I'm sure you reflected on that as you were setting the salary. I don't happen to know, but I do encourage you to try to save funds where it seems reasonable.
Okay, is there any other comment from anyone that hasn't spoken? Yes, go ahead.
Penny Miller, you mentioned that town employees, some of them pay a 15% copay or contribute to their health insurance. You mentioned some are grandfathered. Are there currently town employees who are grandfathered and have 100% of their health insurance covered?
Yes, sir. Two.
Is there a expiration date as to when they're not going to be grandfathered anymore?
I'm gonna, if they get through, they're expired. I'm gonna ask, is there any other questions or comments that we haven't already started to talk about on this way? Nancy.
I just have another clarification. If the health insurance is $48,000, and that's potentially for the highest level, which would be 2 families, is that really the annual health insurance for 2 families?
That's for 2 people. Two people have that, or splitting that.
2 employees.
2 employees are for 47,000.
Costing us $25,000 a year for an employee's health insurance?
You go buy health insurance, I know you know that, so.
I'm paying Cobra, I'm not paying anywhere near that. I mean, I don't understand how that's even possible.
All right. Okay. I'm going to take one more comment, and then I'm going to say to you, this, you can amend bottom line, but I will remind you that the fact that these numbers are here, the bottom line is all you're amending. You're not setting an increase, decrease on salaries. You're giving them a direction. The bottom line is what you would change on this particular situation. So I know there was a hand over here that hasn't, and then, all right, yes, speak to me.
Martha Benish. Quick question, is the town administrator salaried or is she time clocked?
Salary.
There's no time clock.
Are you clear on that? So it is salary, okay. One more, yes, sir.
Yeah, Andy Kearns. Just a clarification on the health insurance, that number, the 47,131, does that include the 15% pay-in from the employees, or would it actually be less because of the 15% they would pay in?
That's what the 15% backs out.
So this has the 50% taken in?
No, that's not correct.
Schultz?
No, the 15% is taken out of that number.
Okay, let me back up and say I'm not positive on that.
That can be verified, they're not totally positive on that number at this point. Jerry?
Jerry Doherty again. Andy, that is a gross appropriation. It includes the 15% contribution from the employee. So it's a gross appropriation. That's the total amount appropriated for it. So what comes from taxes would be less than that number.
All right, I'm going to move this discussion along. Again, I offer you, if you feel you want to make an amendment to the bottom line, you can make an amendment to the bottom line, but we've got a long way to go here, and we've spent a long time on this. It's an important matter, but I'm moving it along. Okay, is there any other questions on this category other than the wage situation and the health insurance situation, which is in another area? Any other questions on other items in this category? Okay, moving along. There's no, okay, page 86, there's no title on that particular category. It apparently got dropped. It's legal in assessing. That is 2 separate categories theoretically. There should be a $40,000 line and then another $40,000 line on those first 2 items on page 86. So is there any questions on the assessing portion of that category at $40,000? All right, is there any question on the legal expense category of that at $40,000? Okay, moving along, planning board, a total of $15,500, and as you remember, they have been directed to remove a certain amount of money, $12,500 from that category in a previous amendment. Is there any other questions on the planning board? Yes, sir.
Hank British. Under the town clerk section, we were told we had to add $750 in there so that it would be legal for the selectmen to expend money against that particular item. I see here under the planning board and then zoning board and government buildings that in 2013, there were categories where no appropriations were provided, but money was expended. I don't see it, you're not being consistent.
That's because of that, this discussion I just had with the selectmen before I came here tonight. As the moderator has said, the selectmen, you set the operating budget, and then throughout the course of the year, the selectmen have the discretion to transfer money back and forth between the various line items, as long as they don't exceed the overall operating budget which we approved tonight. The exception to that is, according to the Municipal Association in their town meeting and town budgeting handbook, is that if a line item is reduced to zero, then technically the selectmen aren't supposed to spend money for that purpose. There should be at least $1 in it in order to be able to transfer money back and forth. That's why we put $750 in the electioneering line earlier. And it's going to come up one more time again before we're done.
Any other questions on the planning board category? Okay. Zoning board category. We have a total of $2,500. Any questions, comments? Okay, moving on fairly quickly now, thank you. General government and buildings, total of $47,500. Is there any questions in that category? Okay. Cemeteries, $9,250. Any questions there? Property liability insurance, health insurance, others. Why is that? Is that separate? Should that be separated again? Okay. The property liability insurance. Okay. The property liability insurance this year is $50,000. Is there any question on property liability insurance?
What property are you talking about?
All town properties.
Oh, I see, it's under cemeteries, so I wasn't sure.
No, the heading is not there. It's missing. The cemetery was.
Both of those headings were missing from last year's budget and weren't caught last year, and so we didn't catch missing those headings this year when we put together the budget either.
Okay, is everybody clear on that then? All right, the next category is building inspection. And that looks to be $18,000 total. Any question on that category?
One quickie.
Thank you.
Peter John. Last year we spent $3,700 for our building inspector. Why did we raise $15,000? Is Andy raising his rates?
One of the circumstances that we weren't matching the income with the payout of the funds raised from building permits, and that was obviously an issue. The lack of billable hours seemed to be the reason for that shortfall there. When we hire a new building inspector, we expect that to be back up to 15,000. It's an unknown factor because we don't know how many buildings we can do.
Is this another total appropriation line? In other words, those fees are actually paid by the people paying for their building inspection?
This is a wash because the fees coming in should go up.
It has to be appropriated and then the money goes back into the, okay?
Should be a wash.
It should be a wash.
It hasn't been recently.
All right, so that portion of the entire operating budget is the general government of $481,665. Next category under this total article is public safety. The first one will be the police department, and the total is $337,004. Is there any questions, comments on this?
I'm sorry, you said that.
Gotta have your name.
I said the total budget is going to be 41,665, but we've already taken out 12,500 and added in 750. Should we revise that?
That goes to the total bottom of Article 6. We're going down through the different categories, these are subcategories actually, subtotals, that the bottom line we'll vote on will be a corrected amount.
Okay.
So we're just still discussing, and I apologize. We've been doing subcategories. I should have explained that a little better. The subcategory now that we're into is Public Safety Police Department, which will be added to as we move along there with all these other categories. Everybody clear on that? So any questions on the police department? Yes?
Jeanette Hagman, can someone explain the $22,000 increase in the first line of wages? Are we hiring someone or?
No, we're not. The question came up when we reviewed and went through and did surveys the police did. We came up with wages. Our police department is underpaid, to say the least. What we're exposed to in this is our policemen are fully qualified, fully trained. It's so easy to have another department pick them up at slightly higher wages and pull them out. We had a long discussion in public session about how to try to obviously resolve this. Anyway, try to resolve it. If you ask for a direct resolution of any reasonable, to match some reasonable stuff, the increase would have been significantly more. What we finally ended up with was an increase that over a period of 2 or 3 years would try to bring them up to average. And they did not receive the increase some years ago because of some other reasons. But as the selectmen looked at it, said, it's really a responsibility to try to at least bring this up to some normal level. It is not exceeding any average. It's bringing them up to where they're going to participate in. So that's the reason for that $20,000.
I had another hand over here somewhere. Is there still a question?
Bill Wogish. For the record, Carl received a 4% increase, and the other 2 officers received an 8% increase. And it still, as Bill said, doesn't even bring them up to a competitive rate. We let them fall by the wayside 2 or 3 years and didn't give them any raises, so now we're playing catch-up. And that commitment is made for this year only, and next year we'll have to do. We wanted to do it over 3 years, but we couldn't do it. We're not allowed to.
Only 1 year.
Right, so we will address next year. But that's what they received, which is, they wanted 18%, and we settled the 4% for Carl, and Carl wanted his men to receive a decent increase, and Carl his wages were more competitive than the other 2 officers. And so we're trying to bring them up to the average over the next 3 years.
Any other questions or comments on this category?
One thing, Patty, I just had a question. Are each of the policemen full-time now? They're 40, whatever, full-time, 40, 50 hours a week?
We have 3 full-time officers and there are currently 1 part-time officer. Any other questions, comments on this category? Okay. Next category would be the Barlow Jackson Ambulance Service is $6,400. Is there any questions?
Can you explain if, does Jackson pay 50% of the total cost, or how it's divided between the two towns?
I believe it's 64 for the operating, 40% us.
And that's an extremely small amount compared to what the real operating cost of that facility, that operation is. Okay, any other questions? Next one, fire department. Total is $167,700. Is there any questions in that category? Emergency management is $10,100. Is there any questions there? Good. All right, so that subtotal again, 541,204 is carried forward as well as the other one. Okay, the next category in this total is highways, bridges, and street lighting. A total of $281,529. Is there any questions there? Any, excuse me.
Sarah Clemens, could we just have a breakdown like you gave for the police, how the wage, is it everybody getting the same amount of increase, or is it a
4% for everybody?
Excuse me. You asking the
Yes.
percentage of wage?
right, is it this same idea as the road agent, for instance, getting a different wage increase as opposed to the workers, or is it just above the whole crew is just getting?
4% across the board.
I want to make sure we're all on the same page. Go ahead. Does that answer your question?
It
I believe
represents
it's
4%
4%.
across the board increase.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on that category? Okay. Highways and streets. $349,400. Any questions there? Okay. Which, there again, total highway would be $630,929 as a subcategory again. Next one will be solid waste disposal. And that will be $120,000 total cap. Any questions, comments? Yes.
We do need to appropriate some money for the groundwater monitoring. We believed at one point that this is in Malone Road, the old dump, that all that was done, but apparently we have to make sure that it still could get tested, and we have to make sure we allocate $2,500 for that line item.
So are you asking for an amendment on the bottom line again and have it directed towards that line item of groundwater monitoring?
Yes, I am.
People, any questions about that?
So moved.
Second.
Chief, if you can tell, John, I think it was back around 2008 or 9, the company that handles it, Bridge Rock, told us that, we were only going to go for another year or so, we would have 2 years, and then we would have to monitor it anymore. It's not a big number, but I don't know why, has the law changed or something on groundwater monitoring?
I believe it was all done too. We just recently got the memo from Bergeron requesting that they reallocate this money because it is incentive.
You might want to go back in the files, and I don't know if you probably already have, but check the letters that they sent back 4 years ago. Because I think that, be careful.
Probably more than likely the $2,500 would, less than half of that would probably be used.
All right, so I believe someone was started to make a motion.
So moved.
A motion has been made to amend the total bottom line by the sum of $2,500. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Okay. Is there any question on the amendment? It's going to amend the total bottom line and direct the selectmen to accordingly add it to that line item.
Jerry Doherty again. We are currently in a contract with HEB for the groundwater monitoring up there. Yes, it was anticipated that it was going to end, but the state environmental services required that we continue to do it. That was due to a change in the law. But we are currently in a contract with them, so we should appropriate money on that contract. And that contract, I believe, was entered into in 2011 or 2012. So it was re-upping the contract that we were under. It has to be continued as a state law requirement.
And we just got the letter 2 weeks ago from the Department of Environmental Services.
Okay, is there any other questions on the amendment that has been proposed and seconded is to amend the bottom line to increase $2,500? Is there any other questions on the amendment? Okay, all those in favor of the amendment to adjust the bottom line up $2,500, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Okay, health and welfare. No appropriation being asked for this year. Okay, I'm told no. All right. Moving right along, animal control, $1,184. Is there any questions in that category? Public welfare. Oh, wait a minute. Is that, okay, excuse me, $6,000. Thought I was looking at the wrong line.
Animal control.
No, the $1,184 was animal control.
Okay.
That, but the two subcategories equal the total of $7,184. The public welfare is $6,000. I apologize. So you've got, that answer your concern, Ray? Was Ray?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have a $6,000 request for public welfare. Okay, so the $6,000 request for public welfare and the animal control of $1,184 equals the $7,184 for the total of that particular category. Next category we're talking about will be library appropriations, and it will be $53,816 is the proposed budget. Question? Okay. Recreations and parks. The original proposed is $25,700. One of the areas that it was recommended with the amendment that we did the first time was to have the selectmen reduce that by $3,000. Excuse me, $4,000. That was two lines there, yes. Any questions on that total category area? Okay. Debt service.
Excuse me, Bill. Bill,
Oh, sorry.
why is ballpark, ball field expenses under general government buildings and not under recreation and parks?
Maintenance more than anything else. It's a maintenance issue. People mowing the lawns, there wasn't any, equipment that was being purchased, it was just pure maintenance, I believe, okay?
I think that's just, there was a lot, the last couple of years, there's been a lot of adjustment, and money hasn't changed, it's just the name of it moved to different places. I think it's just a...
I'd just like to make a clarification there. If you think it's confusing on your end, it's very confusing on this end to do this way. The Department of Revenue Administration is telling this town and many other towns that you have to have one total lump sum for the operating. And as a lot of you have been here many years, it was way easier to do these as actual articles, but we can't do that. And the trouble is, every year they get to the way to categorize these, the very next year, DRA changes it again. And it's extremely difficult for me to try to make it not complicated for you, and I apologize for that, but you can thank your wonderful...
Bill, one reason that we've got this kind of a muddled up deal that we're going through now is the state of New Hampshire. That's our problem. When the state gets into it, you got a mess.
So anyway, enough said, I guess, but we have to muddle through this, and I apologize if it's confusing, because it is. All right, no other questions on the recreation and parks at 25-7, knowing that that will probably actually be reduced in reality? Okay, next area, debt service, $67,500. Is there any questions? Okay. Next category. Is this a separate category? The TAN's interest paid is $1,000. Any question on that category?
What is it?
Tax anticipation note interest, and that's assumed if you don't have it at this time, correct? So that's there, and then you have to, that is there again. If they think they may need money, they have to put it in an appropriation line. But it is just in the event that they should have to borrow in the anticipation of tax. Any questions? Okay. So the total, capital outlay. No. Correct? That goes on there. Okay. We'll move to page 90 and we will have, so there is no total. None. So capital outlay is 0. Okay, that's a good thing. All right, the last and special revenue fund category, and there again, there is no proposed budget. So we now have a amended total operating budget. We've done a few amendments up and a few amendments down, and the new total is, in fact, the new amended total bottom line of the operating budget is $1,895,748.
What was that again, Bill?
Give it just a second. The new total appropriation for the operating budget is, as amended, is $1,895,748. Are there any last questions on that? So everything we've just done gets us to this. I will now ask for a vote. All those in favor of the total operating budget for the town of $1,895,748, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you for bearing with us on that one. Okay, Article 7. To see if the town will vote to approve the ordinance pertaining to state and national criminal backgrounding of persons engaged in municipal affairs pursuant to RSA 31:102-A and B. The ordinance is available for review at the Jackson Town Office and will be available for review at the annual town meeting. Selectmen are in favor. I'm going to recognize the selectmen. I'm going to need a motion and a second to get it on the floor first. Been moved.
Second.
And it's been seconded. Discussion, and I'm going to recognize the selectmen this time. And the one who's going to speak on it ran out of the room.
This is an ordinance that came to us, and it's designed to require any person who is designated as a hawker or a peddler or an itinerant vendor that is required to get a license from the state of New Hampshire to peddle their wares in our town, the ability to have a federal criminal background check, which used to be available to us, but now, due to something called an umbrella ordinance and a state law that was passed, in order to get a federal background check, we have to have an ordinance in the town. We've reviewed it. It seems confusing. We've had a lot of input from people in this town about it. After it was drafted, there were a number of questions about it. There's a lot of confusion around it. The three selectmen have decided that really at this point in time, we need to clarify some of those issues that were brought forth, and that it doesn't necessarily ring consistent with the needs of our town the way it's worded right now. We believe that this ordinance really does require further study. It needs to come back at a later date. And therefore, at this time, we are recommending that you vote against this ordinance.
And I know there were a lot of people that were going to speak on this, and I was hoping that might solve that and clarify it. Okay. So it's my understanding the selectmen are recommending that this article be defeated. So is there anybody else have any questions, comments on this article? Yes.
My name is Kevin Donahoe. My question is, do you anticipate needing another year, another 2 years? When do you expect to try to resolve this?
The federal authorities that oversee federal background checks, and it's under the authority of the FBI, used to grant background checks for peddlers and hawkers and vendors who are required to have licenses from our state. They decided they weren't going to perform those background checks for this category of worker without a specific bill passed that became law at the state level, and then at the municipality level, ordinances that were passed and approved by the FBI. And so in July, we got this letter from the Department of Safety with template language, and the template language was there for a reason. A number of towns had approved these ordinances but didn't get their wording right, and so to us now it seems like to get the wording right, it seems confusing. There's a lot of information out there that just doesn't feel good for us to have floating out there to address this situation. And there's beyond that rather, there's still a question about whether Jackson really needs an ordinance like that. So we really feel like pulling this out, recommending that you vote it down at this time, allowing us to take a look at it over the next year. And I guess if we feel like it is really something, it's designed to protect the people that live in town from vendors going door to door and seal coating driveways or performing household repairs or improvement. People who go from town to town or place to place offering to perform personal services or household repairs or improvement. That's the type of person it's designed to address, but it really seems confusing to us, and it seems confusing to a lot of people.
Is there any other questions or comments on this?
I'd just like to say thank you, Tish Hanlon. I think that's prudent.
I'm sure the selectmen will spend further time on this. It's a case of the federal government told the state government to tell the town government to do this. but they didn't tell them how to do it that would be acceptable. All right, again, they're recommending a no vote to defeat this article. So all in favor of passing this article, signify by saying aye. Opposed? No. The article's defeated. Thank you. Article 8. To see if the town will vote to change the office of town treasurer from an elected position to an appointed position in accordance with RSA 41:26-E. Such appointment shall be made in accordance with RSA 669:17-D by the Board of Selectmen. Such appointment shall be made in writing and shall include the compensation to be paid. If approved, the person holding the elected office shall continue to hold such office until the next annual town election following the vote. Selectmen are in favor, 2 to 1. So moved. Is there a second? Okay, I need a second. It's been moved and seconded. Before you all go wild, I believe that I will be receiving a petition for a written ballot on this. Can we just have a little discussion before we go to that? You can bring this up and decide. Ray, guys, you get state your name, right?
Ray Abbott.
Thank you.
This is one that I feel very strongly about. We've got a government down in Washington that is operating without looking at the Constitution. We have this article now, we elect the treasurer. The people elect the treasurer. Why should we give that up? Why give up the business of choosing somebody to be the treasurer? Now that's you know, you don't hear a lot about the treasurer, but I'll tell you, it's an important job. And I think that we could do no better than, just like we just did with Article 7, vote this thing down and be done with it.
I just have to legally make sure that the names that I just received are on the checklist. Is there any other, yes?
Betsy Harding, I'm just wondering, the two selectmen who favored it, could one or more of them speak as to why they favored it?
I'm glad you brought that up. The discussion arose, the issue arose when the treasurer announced he was going to resign midterm. And in that discussion was in the public meeting, we talked about it, and this issue came up is because the treasurer did not have a deputy. And therefore, if that person said, I'm leaving, a week from now, the town would be caught with nobody. And then it would be, you'd be looking for a contractor, I don't know what you do, but it would be an issue. It'd be a matter you'd have to take care of. This came up and said, why don't we give the town a choice? So there's no one, not a single selectman who's saying that this is the best thing to do. The only reason this is on here is because this is a democracy and liberty, and it is an article that says you all decide on what you think is best for your town. If the answer is we want to maintain it elected, we're all for it. It is only the opportunity to understand what the issue is.
And we asked our lawyer to draw this warrant article up about midway through the filing period when no one had filed. We didn't want to get caught without anybody. And so that spurred a conversation about, do we have people in town that are really qualified to do this? And is it a job that's so unattractive that no one's willing to do it? And then what do we do? Because it is an important job. Just like Ray said, it's a really important job. Different treasurers in different towns have different levels of function. And we looked at other cases for precedents, and recently Hanover had moved from elected to appointed because they couldn't find people. It seemed to be a pattern with some towns around the state. That's why a state law was enacted in 2011 authorizing towns to do this. In a perfect world, you'd have somebody filing for it, but because, and then we had somebody file like, you know, last day, last hour, and then we had that person withdraw, and then we had a writing candidate, and it is an important job, and it just seemed like it was being left up in a really fragile state. And so we saw it as a way to protect ourselves moving forward.
All right. I'm getting an opinion from our legal counsel, thank you. Wasn't abandoned. Okay, yes.
Hi, Andy Kearns. I know the selectmen might be a little different than the school board officers, but I know with the school board, if a member has to resign, the school board then appoints somebody, and that appointment lasts until the next election. Then it would get re-voted. So I'm a little, maybe some clarification on why that isn't how the selectmen would work.
I think it does work like that, to answer your question.
So then you wouldn't be left with nobody. You just stay
Well,
that.
you're talking about if you had a deputy, then you would be able to transition into how you solve the problem. But the point is, even if the selectmen went out, in other words, you still have a period of time in which you're going to have to work this thing out. You could work it out. We're just saying this is an option that would be helpful in those circumstances. But it's your call because we'll work it through.
Okay, there's a lot of hands up here. I don't know if I'm going to get them in order, but I'll start over here with, go ahead, Frank. I don't know who's first.
Frank Benish. Well, I guess the question, Bill, is, you know, why do people favor this? You've indicated that you put this out here to let us decide, but two of you apparently think this is something we should vote for because you have the 2-to-1 here, and I've not heard a reason why you think we should vote for it.
I am not recommending you vote for it or against it. When we talked about this, we saw that it had pluses and minuses. We knew even in our meetings there were people who were concerned about it, but there were enough people at the meeting who were also concerned about having qualified people. If it were not an elected office, then you could do the same thing like you do for the building inspector. You could have interviews, you could see who's qualified, you could establish the salary, and you would probably and I hope it would be, to create a very smooth transition in operation. But there's no magic to it. I think Pete Davis told me, he said, look, we've been doing this way for 200 years, Lockwood. Why are you coming here and going to change it? I'm really not trying to change this thing for 200 years. We talked about it in the selectmen meeting and said, if anything, rather than us proposing it, let's give the town a chance to decide what they think is best for the town. That's where this proposal is.
All right, Dave, I'm going to go next. I'm going to try to get you, it may not be in the order you put your hands up, but.
David Mason. I'm the elected town auditor, and I'm going into my third year as elected town auditor. The first year I became town auditor, I got 8 write-in votes. You know, I mean, there's always somebody. There always has been somebody. This is a bad idea. The treasurer needs independence. I see that as town auditor for the last 2 years, going into the third year. And when the selectmen appoint someone to a salary position, it certainly doesn't, it could have the appearance of taking away independence of the treasurer. I think it's a bad idea.
All right, Warren, I believe.
Warren Shoemaker. You see, 2 days ago, we had an election, and we elected a treasurer for a 3-year term. Now, this warrant article proposes to cut her term to 1 year, and then the selectmen would appoint. For the life of me, I can't understand how you could be for something like this and disenfranchise the voters by who just voted for a 3-year term to a good candidate and say, you can only serve for 1 year because we're going to turn around and appoint a treasurer.
I need to say this one more time, Warren, is that the selectmen did not decide we're going to do this and push this over them. I don't know where you got that from. When you're the one that said you're going to resign, we didn't do that. It came up because of you saying you're going to leave in term. We're not pressing this warrant article. You need to decide whether you want to do it or not do it. So I'm not pressing for it.
Before we go any further, I'm going to try to make a quick clarification here. I was trying to get a clarification from our town attorney, and you all sit here back and you stand here. Peter, please correct me. If our current treasurer resigned, or God forbid something happened that caused that individual to not be able to continue their term, the selectmen by statute have a procedure by RSA that they can appoint to fill that position without any input from the townspeople whatsoever. Okay? Well, I'm not saying I agree with that. I'm saying that's state law. There is statutes. There's RSAs. They're not just going to let the thing just sit there and not get filled. They're going to fill that position. I believe, in just a short conversation, they're looking, if that should happen, and it very much almost is, there would be a transition period there that we wouldn't have that treasurer for tomorrow's check signing, for things of that nature, and it would take time for them to do that. Might take a day, might take 2 months. Correct me again, they're looking for guidance and input. Okay, if that should happen again, do you want them to have the blessing and the authority that they already have, or do you not? That's the bottom line. Okay. I'm not saying for or against. I'm trying to clarify their position as to why they do this out here is exactly what we're trying to get from you people. Yes or no. But if you say no, don't give them the authority, guess what? The state statute gives them that authority anyway. No. I'm not going to call a question. There are several people that have wanted to speak that have not spoken. So, someone that has not spoken, and I'm going to go over here first. Kathy?
Okay. Just to make everything, I'm sorry, Kathleen Doherty. And I'm just going to point in the new town treasurer. Anyway, to make it all easier for everybody, in case something happens, I would like to appoint a deputy, so if something should happen to me, they could just follow along and continue along with whatever's going on, and that would just make it easier and what's involved is selectmen. And if that's all right with the town, it's a suggestion to make it easier.
Thank you. I'll also remind you, no matter where we go with this conversation, we're not calling the question just yet. No matter what, we have a legal petition request to have a secret ballot on this article, and that is exactly what we're going to do. Okay? So is there anyone that hasn't spoken that feels they need to speak before I open the poll? Gino.
Yeah, Gino Finucciano. Having just fought one of the hardest fought campaigns in my life, the treasurer, the reason I did come out for it was because I didn't think appointing the treasurer was a good idea. And I think 600 or 400 people in the town should elect the person they want to represent them for the next 3 years as a treasurer. The selectmen always have the authority in a situation of a disaster to do whatever they have to do. But having been a selectman, I think where you only serve 3 or 6 years or whatever, your term, I don't think it's good to be appointing people that are going to go out into the future. That's why I think the town, the citizens, the voters, make a better decision. And, thank you.
Who else hasn't spoke here? There's a couple more now. I think Jerry was ahead, and I'll come back to Pete.
Jerry Doherty, and just to clarify what you said, this is not about the absence of a town treasurer. The selectmen have the authority to appoint that with or without this article.
Right.
This article is asking to do away with the elected position altogether and having an appointed position. I think the overwhelming attitude in this room is that nobody wants this. And now it's going to secret ballot. It's going to take a long time for all of us to vote. I think maybe you don't all have to vote in the secret ballot. I think maybe we just trusted a few people we know that are against us to go up and vote.
This is what we have to do. There's,
Can I say?
go ahead, B, I'm gonna
Since
give,
1931 to the present day, we've only had 4 elected treasurers. So keep it, all I want you to keep it that way.
Withdraw the petition.
Do you want me to withdraw it? So you
Yes.
can- I'll withdraw.
all right, people.
Fair enough.
We do have this in front of us. There is a very specific procedure. The individual that presented the petition and the 5 signatures of the people present who have been verified that are registered voters could rescind their petition. Before I do that, I was very much hoping that would happen because I believe even the selectmen, regardless how they voted, are looking for you guys to say yes or no, and that's exactly whether I think the message has been said loud and clear, and nobody really wants this. So if that's the case, if the 5 petitioners and the person that passed the petition in agree to withdraw that, I'll withdraw this. But I can't just say no. I can't just throw this away. It's a legal document now.
Okay,
All right, can you just stand up and identify yourselves for the record? Let the record show that the 5 petitioners in this committee is asking. I got one missing. Christine? Wow. I don't want to do that, but it's state law and I cannot.
And let 5 people go vote.
Okay, and I was just going to question that, but Peter, our attorney, just offered that already to me. The law requires that the 5 people that submitted this are registered voters and are present for the vote. Now we have an individual that signed this that's not present. So this petition is null and void. All right, do one more. You have spoken in. Go ahead.
Wendy McVeigh. On a more serious note, what I'd like to do, we all understand what a serious position it is for somebody to be elected as our town treasurer. For 9 years, we've had Warren Shoemaker, who has done an absolutely superb job as our treasurer. And I think we owe him a round of applause.
Thank you. All right. Thanks. Okay, is there any other questions, any other discussion on this article? A simple majority rules on this, folks, okay? All those in favor of Article 7, signify by saying aye.
Article 8.
Excuse me, Article 8. It's late, long here. All those opposed? The article's defeated. Get you there. Article 9. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $32,500 for the purpose of granting health insurance benefits to the town clerk tax collector, which is offered to all full-time employees as stated in the Jackson personnel policy. If approved, health insurance will be included in the future operating budgets. Selectmen in favor?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Yes.
Okay.
Got to stay in name. Thank you.
Bill Wogish. Just for the facts, it said that for all full-time town employees, Karen is not a full-time employee. She's a part-time employee, number one.
Right.
Number two, her position is an elected position not appointed. I don't believe in the history of the town of Jackson that we ever offered benefits to a part-time employee that was elected. So, just so you know what you're doing, we're setting precedents here if we vote for this, and that's something that we're going to learn to live with. And by the way, I would like to ask a question in respect of monies. What is this position going to cost with Karen occupying this position versus what our last collector, Jeanette Heidman, what percentage are we going to increase this position by doing this? Can you I don't care whether you give it to me in percentages or whether you give it to me in dollars and cents.
Are you talking about wages and benefits combined?
Wages and benefits combined. That's the bottom line.
Wages and benefits combined will raise the cost of having a town clerk tax collector by 67%.
Does that include the $4,000 on the
Yes, it
next
does.
article?
Yes, it does.
So it would go up 67%. with all
If these two articles were to pass.
That's right.
Right.
That
So
would-
you know, that's what that position is entailed.
We're going to make that position full-time. That was the whole point of extending the hours in the office to match the hours of the town office.
That's another question. What about the hours?
That was the premise, that we were going to extend the hours and make them match the hours that were in the office. And therefore become full-time.
I asked that question, and I was told that, I asked Karen if she was going to retain her part-time jobs, and that's the reason we have the cockamamie hours that we have now, because she has to try to fit our job into her other jobs. And I think that this is, her primary job is this. We're offering her benefits and no one else is. And I would like to see her office hours coincide with the regular office hours.
That's the plan.
Well, that's not what I was told.
That's a different issue as far as combining hours and making that, so what I gotta limit this to is what we're talking about. And this is, we've already dealt with the creating the position of full-time, in theory, in the operating budget. Now we're actually saying, do we want to go that full step and go to insurance, as I understand that they've explained to me. And I've had a hand up here for a while, and I'll get to everyone that hasn't spoken. Go ahead.
Jeanette Heidman, the former town clerk. I worked very part-time, and Karen and I had it as an active deputy. Karen is going to assume, or she is assuming, most of the hours herself. As I am still the deputy, I come in when she's going to be out of the office for training. So she's the only person that is really manning the office. Because it's a part-time job now and she has to maintain a couple of other positions, she can't give you the service that she wants to. And that many people have said, we would like this office open more hours. So by adding the cost in Article 6 to the operating budget, we've now given her the additional hours. She doesn't have to work her other jobs, but she still doesn't have health care. There are many, many precedents set by other towns who do pay their town clerk tax collector benefits if they're in a full-time position. So it's not like this has never been done before. It's up to Karen what she sets her hours to be. Everybody assumes they should be the same as the selectman's office. That does not have to be the case. She sets her own hours. She may be open 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, if that's what she wants to do. So don't limit her to saying, we want you to be open when the selectmen are open.
All right, there you go. Okay, I'm gonna, go ahead.
Jerry Dockery. John, you kept referring to the fact that you're going to make it a full-time job. The selectmen have no power over the hours that an elected official such as a clerk works. I think you should acknowledge that.
Thank you. It is an elected official position, exactly right. I think Sarah was next, and then I'll...
Sarah Clemens. I'm a little, with a 67% raise, that affects me tremendously. But also, too, if this is going to be done for elected officials, does that mean that the next step will be next year? A town treasurer may want to have benefits. I mean, we could, again, be saying we could be adding to the town treasurer more hours and add a raise and add retirement. We have all we can do right now to give our full-time salary people who work for us on a salary, who are in your power to give hours to, and trying to maintain our police and our highway department, and yet now we're going to start with elected officials, which, you know, to me is just opening up a new.
Yes, go ahead.
Andy Kern again. I just want to reiterate from another line item, I mentioned this, and I believe this was confirmed by Jerry. This is a gross appropriation, so the 15% that Karen paid into it would actually be taken off this number. And so the number covered out of town, the taxpayers would be $27,625, not the 32,500.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Leslie Schmicker, I have a question on how this salary, we had a long discussion when we were going through the line items in financial administration. A standard financial administration, the wages and benefits, $145,000. Under town clerk, tax collector, $33,000. And I would think there's certainly comparable responsibilities and jobs. The town clerk, tax collector has less help. And I just wonder how her salary now compares to the other office administrative salary. I would think that they should be on par.
Are you asking about a question on salary, or if you are, this needs to stay towards what this article, the intent and the basic content and substance of the article. We're talking about health insurance. I need to keep that in the discussion. Okay, is that, I'm not trying to cut you off, but I need to keep it to the content of what we're talking about. Is there, okay, good. Do you have comments? Oh, I knew I had 3 or 4 more hands. Yes, Peter.
Peter Benson. There's been, just a quick comment, there's been a lot of discussion tonight around personnel and staffing, whether they're elected or appointed, or whether they're hired by the town. And I said this at the budget committee hearing, our town employees, the people who work for this town, are our most valuable resource. And they're the only asset that appreciates over time. Fire trucks, buildings appreciate. Good town employees are like gold. And I think we need to focus. We breezed through a lot of articles, a lot of pieces of the budget with no thought. But when it comes to people and people who work for this town and work for you, I think we need to think about them all the time. And a good wage and health insurance is a basic right that we should be considering for them. Thank you.
I know there was a few more hands, people that haven't spoken. Hi, my name is Bob Burton, and one of the things I want to point out in discussions that I'm Karen's husband, and is that in not trying to go for increasing salary for the position, and kind of in line, her idea was to make the office more available, more hours, and also some of the hours that are needed each day to reconcile and get set up in the morning. So the actual amount of time that is spent in the offices meets the requirements or the guidelines for full-time town employees. So I know one of the earlier speakers had mentioned on this that the town treasurer be possible in the future to be able to look for health benefits, but that requirement, I believe it's a 35-hour that other town employees need for the insurance, selected. Minimum 30 hours, and the hours proposed to kind of warrant this request of the town members would be under the premise that the office will be open more hours and she would be more available, and she didn't seek $46,000 in salary as one of our other full-time employees in the town office asked to have at this point with the 16% increase last year. And that's one of the bases for asking for that, for even though it's an elected position, other town employees full-time are allowed to have that health insurance. There is a 15% that comes off that line, and that's just what I wanted to kind of clarify with the people of what is proposed for hours and that, and looking for the compensation with the health insurance as opposed to just base salary, because as everyone knows, the health insurance these days is prohibitive.
Okay, Warren,
Yeah, I just wanted to start, Warren Shoemaker. I've worked closely with Karen for the past year, and I have to tell you, you wouldn't find a more dedicated person. And what I find very refreshing to hear her say many times, she wants to make her hours user-friendly. And she's limited at this time because she doesn't have enough hours to spread around. So going to a full-time position will make that office more efficient than it is now. And don't forget that it's not just when the window's open, there's work being done when the window's closed. I'm in favor of everything this warrant article calls for, and I think we've got a real jewel in Karen as an employee.
Jeff, and then Gina.
Jeff Maynard. I just did some quick math. If this article is approved, my taxes are going to go up 15 cents. That's a bargain.
Gina?
I think everybody should keep in mind, Karen's just been overwhelmingly elected. Everybody knew what was coming today, and also that office probably takes in 99% of all the revenue that comes through the town. So I think we've got to have a top shelf person that will work a full term and, get it done.
Okay, I'm gonna, anyone that hasn't talked, you haven't spoken yet, and I'll be back.
I just want to reiterate what Gino said, Linda Little. I'm a former deputy, and I know how much work goes into that position. She's handling millions of dollars, and I don't want her to have other jobs at the Red Fox or wherever. I want her focused on the town and the town work.
Anybody else that hasn't spoken at this point? Okay.
Just one question.
Sarah.
If the health benefit is issued and we are setting a new policy, so to speak, would it be just for Karen, or does it include your entire family?
The family policy. If the next tax collector was single, it'd be a single policy. It'd be cheaper.
But you don't feel that this is like when new hire came to the town, there were two that were grandfathered who got full insurance. Then when new hires came to the town, they paid 15%. You do not feel where this is an elected official and it's a new policy that you could not state that it would be for the individual that's working the job? And I'm just curious.
I'll try to answer that. With the old policy and the grandfather status, all the town employees were eligible for insurance. Their status, single, two-person family plans were what they had. That was not this, and the new people that come into town, they have that same ability. Their status governs what policy they take. They pay 15% of whatever that cost is to the town. Does that explain that? It's not limiting the type of policies.
It does in one aspect, but in another aspect, this is a whole new procedure. And an elected official again.
All right, any other,
Is our road agent elected?
no.
Not anymore.
No. Any other questions or anybody that hasn't spoken? Okay. Very good. You want- Yes, yes, absolutely.
One thing I wanted to clarify. The way we handled this article and the next one is to protect the town. So by stating that the person who holds this position, in order to get those benefits, must meet the minimum requirements that is offered by the town policy to all other full-time employees. So if the next employee who comes in and wants to work 20 hours a week, they would not be eligible for that benefit because they're not meeting the minimum requirements that is set by the town.
So does that help clarify that? There is still the policy of the minimum hours and the minimum procedures. Any other questions, anybody else that hasn't spoken at this point? Okay, I'm going to call the vote. Article 9, as written and read. All those in favor of Article 9, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 10. See if the town will vote to raise the appropriate sum of $4,000 for the purpose of creating New Hampshire Retirement System, NHRS, benefits to the town clerk tax collector, which is offered to all full-time town employees as stated in the Jackson Personnel Policy. If approved, NHRS benefits will be included in the future operating budgets. Thoughts in favor?
So moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Not? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 11. See if the town will vote to raise the appropriate sum of $6,500 for the purchase of a phone system for the town offices for the purpose of upgrading the current system so that all town buildings can be interconnected. Selectmen favor.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Question, Larry Garland. So that all town buildings can be interconnected, does that mean that all town buildings are getting new phones?
Yes, it does. And they all have intercom capabilities.
Okay, so it's not, when you say for the town offices, it's all of the town,
Fire, highway department, town office.
across the board for all town?
Not school. That school would come under the school district. Anything with the town.
Library.
Library?
Library. Town building. That's it. Okay, any other? Yes.
Since the town garage isn't staffed full-time, do we really need to have, I mean, are we paying cell phone coverage? Are we paying for employees' cell phones, which it seems like a duplicate effort to landline cell phones?
I guess I'll take a stab at that one. No, we don't pay for the cell phones, but if you want to know what the road agent does and has done for many years, he needs a telephone. And there's a good many times that the town offices have to try to depend on county radios, police, and everything to get that communication. And they're sitting in the office. So I would say all town buildings, that one probably is the most important, seeing how they're the ones that maintain the roads in emergencies, not only just in snow. I'm going to take that step on my own.
Would it be less expensive just paying for a cell phone or having a landline? $6,500, that's not an issue.
But it's not $6,500 for the town highway department. It's for all town buildings. It's for all, and all town offices, like the police department within the town office, the highway department in there, the fire department, the library, the selectmen's offices. It's interconnecting all of the offices, agencies, as I understand it. Yes, it's not just one specific. Jay?
To answer your question, cell phone coverage is not quality enough for fire, highway, and police. It's not dependable enough. Landlines are still more dependable than
Are there current existing landlines in all the town buildings?
And we're still doing
Any other questions?
Well, it's my understanding, if I'm correct, that this actually will allow a reduction in our operating costs on phone, so is that not true?
No, that is correct.
That is true.
This will save us money in the long run.
I believe that, in the quote we got was from North Ledge Technologies, I believe we're talking about a savings of about $1,200 a year, $100 a month. So you've got some payback time there for a $6,500 investment, but we will be saving money on our landline costs, yes.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 12, see if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $1,500 for the purchase of a portable sound system for the purpose of amplifying town meetings and special events. Selectmen favor.
So moved.
Second? Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Ian?
Where's this going to be used? Remind me, there is a sound system in this building, I'm just curious.
I was referring, I brought this up, actually, Mary Kay requested it at the office meeting, the selectmen's meeting, because it is kind of hard to hear.
Yes.
And also when I went to the Memorial Day service, I couldn't hear a thing. And I think that's such an important thing to have, so, to be properly represented and everybody can hear the, speeches and things like that. I think it's very important.
Just looking as a point of clarification. Thank you.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 13, see if the town will vote to discontinue the Library Capital Reserve Fund 0061, created in 2008 for the purpose of constructing the new library. Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is zero. Selectmen in favor.
No move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Okay, Article 14. See if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $60,000 to be placed in the old library capital reserve fund 0069. Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is $4,895.15 for the purpose of constructing a restaurant and septic system, supplying water to, and maintenance of the old library. Selectmen are in favor. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Question, gentlemen, if somebody could speak to what's in the 60,000, it just seems like a big number.
My name is Joan Aubert, and I'm on the old library management committee. And just Leisha Hawks and Marilyn Rose are also on that committee. All three of us are here tonight. The $60,000, let me back up a little bit. It's taken us 2 years, and I'm happy to report we actually have a state-approved septic system. Our neighbor, Fred Scobel, has generously granted an easement. So the Litchfield is actually going to be way over on the Wentworth property, and it's going to be a pump system to get it over there. It is an expensive system. We are pumping close to 400 feet, going from the back of the library, following the pavement between the river and the church, turning where the playground is, coming across that area, turning again, and then going across to an area where we can put a leach field. That's an expensive system. We've gotten 2 quotes, and the quotes have ranged from $22,000 to $26,000 alone. To get water to the building, we're going to have to come under Route 16A. There's a fire hydrant almost directly across from the library. We're going to do something called horizontal boring, where they dig a trench on each side and pound a piece of pipe through so we can get water over to the building. Not too many firms do that. We've gotten a quote from a firm, and they quoted between $12,000 and $13,000, assuming you don't hit any big rocks or anything goes wrong. So those two are the majority of our cost here. We have to put in the fixtures, and while that building is heated, it is not insulated. So we're gonna have to spend a little bit of money to insulate the piping so we don't create a water hazard within the building. The $60,000 also includes painting of the exterior of the building. The exterior of the building does need some touch-ups, or actually some coating, some of the window sills are in pretty bad shape, so. There is quite a bit going on there. We would like to address the ramp in the front. It's a pretty lousy ramp, if you ever notice, it's just 2x4s, it's handrails. Front has sunk a little bit, we need to bring in some dirt, redo that sidewalk, bring it up so we don't have quite as steep a ramp. So there's quite a bit of work we have planned to do for this library.
Dick,
Yeah, I'm Dick Bennett, and I don't feel that $60,000 is going to preserve that building. I think that, I don't think we need another bathroom in town. There's certainly places to have meetings, events, and we have this facility, we have selectmen's meeting room over at the town office. We have a new library. And I really question putting a septic system in on somebody else's property for a building that's on somebody else's property. Not that I don't want to save the old library, I like the building too, but I really question putting that kind of money into a bathroom that down the line mentioned heating or insulating the pipes, that's just going to become more and more of an expense. I'd like to think.
Greg?
Ray Abbott. I'm all in favor of this, but I just would like to point out that if we'd have done this a few years ago, we wouldn't have had to build that big bathroom that we got down by the town office.
There was a couple other hands here. Yes, go ahead.
Penny Miller. Does the library committee anticipate revenue coming in to justify $60,000 in costs? It seems like the events that go on there are a few meetings and some decorating competitions. We all love it, we all love the architecture, but I could wonder if the town's ever considered selling the building with a deeded restriction to protect the architectural integrity of the building.
The old library management committee, this group came on board after. There was a previous committee that looked at questions on what to do with it. And so I was not on that committee, and I really can't answer questions about selling it. I think that's, the building is open to Jackson residents to use. Commercial applications are possible, they just have to be considered on a case-by-case basis because we are on church property. We have a right to restrict what happens there in some respects. What's sold and not sold there, and there are insurance issues if you have a commercial operation where the building is right now. But I really don't have an answer to that.
As far as talk, I can tell you that to my recollection of many years, I don't know that we've ever talked about selling that facility. There's been a lot of pro and con about what to do with it once we had the new library, which took quite a long time to get to that stage. But I honestly believe there's never been a discussion about selling the building. There's been many discussions, many times with many committees on what we do with the building. But if that answers your question.
I can't imagine, Bill Wogish, I can't imagine this town without that little library. That library is part of the history of the great town that we live in. And the girls have done a remarkable job. You owe it to yourself to pay a visit to the building. They've done a lot of interior work, time, effort, and money on their behalf. And a lot of people say, well, why do we need it? We have a library. This is not a library. This is a room that can be used by anyone in this town, as long as it's a legit reason. that people say, well, why haven't you used it? Well, it's just like owning a home without a bathroom or running water. You can't use it because you don't have the necessities. So I feel that, you know, the investment is well worth it, and the town will retain the beauty of the building there forever, and I think we owe it to them to restore the building, and I pray that you will vote for this.
This is such a gem of a building, it's on the National Historic Preservation Registry. The town has had a history of letting its real estate go to rack and ruin. They were lucky that the old town office was saved with private money raised by the Historical Society. They're lucky to have this building, which was given by private money. They're lucky to have a new library, which was almost entirely with private money. I think this is such a small amount. In this day and age, a town building ought to have a toilet.
Is there any other issues that we haven't covered on this article, like people that still want to speak? Because we're getting...
John, I have a question. What is the value of the property, and is it on page 35? Priceless.
We don't immediately have the value of that. They don't have, they can provide that, but it won't be done tonight. So, okay, there's a couple more hands. Any other different, go ahead.
Emily Benson, I'm just curious if if your group has talked to the church about using the bathroom right across the driveway there. Because that's what happened. I mean, we got our preschool going on in there, and the library sort of coming back and forth, and I'm just wondering about that.
No, using the bathroom, we don't have to use the church. And in fairness to them, to go and use that building at night. No, we did approach the church. We have permission to go across their property for the septic system.
For what is it, that?
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah, you were then on
Larry Garland. Is the toilet the only fixture in the building to use water, or will the other?
Well, there'll be a small lavatory to wash your hands. And it'll
Lavatory
be
in the bathroom?
in the bathroom.
But there won't be any fixtures outside of the bathroom?
No, I think we're considering putting outside faucets so we can water flowers and stuff like that.
There's nothing in the way of utility kitchens and
No.
kitchen ends.
No. The restroom's gonna go in that little closet, there used to be the computer room.
Okay, yes and no there. Barbara, and then...
Barbara Terrio, I've seen the work that these girls have done, and don't talk about the building unless you've been in it. It is beautiful. All the floors have been redone, and you know what? We spend a lot of money on things that are a lot less important than saving our history.
I had one over here first, and I'll come back. But I want to start getting other questions that we're going back and kicking around the same.
One quick clarification for the historical record. The Honorable Ray Abbott mentioned that the bathroom here, the office, cost a lot of money. That was restored and renewed by a gift. It was not tax money that fixed it up where it is now.
There was, go ahead,
Again, if anybody would like to see how one possible use of that library, please come next Friday at 7 o'clock for our old library evening. And we've had 3 of these so far. We're not raising thousands of dollars each time, but we're raising little by little. These ladies on the library committee have done a great job, but they're carrying water in, serving coffee and hot cider and cleaning up afterwards. It would be great to have running water in the building, and as somebody else said, pretty modern to have a toilet there too. So, but please come by next Friday and see what.
All right. Different issues anyway here?
Yeah, I think we're confusing the issues here. I don't think anybody in this room is talking about collecting this treasure, but this is essentially a change of use in a sense. And it seems to me, and I applaud the work, all the work that's gone into this, I really do. But this is the most expensive option you could possibly think of for this. for this building. And I think there are more creative and a lot less expensive ways to get around it. You have a fully functional bathroom and kitchen 42 feet away. 42 feet. Now, when the library was there was a relationship between the library and the church where they could use the bathroom. Just because you have an ask doesn't mean that you can't use it. It's a curious situation. You have a building sitting on land that you don't own, and you're going to pump septic 400 feet to another piece of land that you don't own. Why would you invest in that as a community when there are less expensive and more practical options on the table? That building has no formal relationship with the church. Everything's been on a handshake for years. I encourage the selectmen with the trustees to get a formal relationship for things like plowing, gardening, everything that goes on there has happened on a handshake. We had an issue there a few years ago where somebody got injured. There was suddenly, who's liable? All these things are going to come up, especially as you formalize the building. So I would encourage you to step back, take a look, see what the best alternative is, not go from the most expensive down.
Okay, anyone that, go ahead.
Yeah, Alan Brooks. Talk about more expensive options. I've talked to people about other options, and one of the options is to move that building over onto where the library and our town offices are. That's one of the things that people have talked about. I've heard that idea banded around. You want to compare that price to $60,000, I think you would come up with something quite a bit more than that. Beyond which, putting that building over there, you're still going to have a septic system in it and everything. The other thing is, this building is an important building. It's a beautiful building, everybody loves it. But there's another thing that's very important with that, in my opinion, and that is where this building sits. And I personally think that where it sits is as important as this building itself. It's very, very important. So we have no choice. If you're going to make this building functional, you're going to have some, it's a weird situation. We've been living with it since forever, and we're going to have to live with it. If we're going to choose to leave that building there, we're going to have to live with that building where it is and accept those difficulties, shall we say.
Okay, I'm going to call this one. I think everybody's heard the pros and cons. So is there anybody that has a single comment that we have not covered pertinent to this? Not? Okay. Is it something different? If it's not, Betsy, I'm going to cut you off.
There is a time limit on this. It is not open forever. We have this, I think it's a 3-year opportunity in which to get this done. If we want to save this building and put some money into making it really habitable for use in evenings and so on, when the church is not available and not open, it makes sense to put money into this building now.
All right, I'm going to call a vote. Okay. Article 14, yes, sorry about that. All those in favor of Article 14 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. I'm gonna do one more here because that was a little bit close. Left-hand side. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Right-hand side. The article passes. I don't need to say the no's, but more yeses than we have. So the article is passed. Article 15. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $5,000 to be placed in the Bridge Repair Expendable Trust Fund, 0034. Fund balance as of 12/31/13, $31,646.14 for the purpose of repairing and maintaining switches. Selectman Taylor.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 16, see if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $5,000 to be placed in the dry hydrant expandable trust fund. 0049, fund balance as of 12/31/13, $184.54 for the purpose of repairing dry hydrants. Select in favor. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
What's a dry hydrant?
It's a fire hydrant that has no water in it. It gives them an ability to draw water from a stagnant source of water, i.e. a pond, 12 months of the year. Bob?
Why did they put them in? They put them in 4 or 5 years and take them out. Most of them have been taken out.
That's incorrect. We have 1, 2, 3, 5, 6 dry hydrants. We have 4 ponds without dry hydrants, only 3 have been taken out. And we have 1 that's at a private residence. Now, it's a tank with a dry hydrant at a private residence. So only 3 have been taken out.
Any other questions, discussions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 17, see if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $18,000 for sidewalk repairs for the purpose of repairing the sidewalk from the Wildcat Service Station to the covered bridge. Select in favor.
Moved.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Which way?
Go ahead, Peter.
Which way?
Short way. Well, on Route 16.
Yes, number 16.
Will it be our own crew that does the work?
Keep quiet in here. I can't even hear the questions, so please be quiet.
We contract out for all paving services.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Judy English, why doesn't the state do that?
State has no responsibility for sidewalks anywhere in the state of New Hampshire.
That's right.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 18. See if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $50,000 to be placed in the Highway Truck Capital Reserve Fund, 0048. Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is $75,179.88 for the purpose of purchasing a new highway truck. Select in favor.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? If not, sorry, Jay.
Jay, when are you targeting buying the truck?
This year.
This year?
Yeah. That's the next article.
Right, I see that, in that article. The only point I've raised on this one is that when we created the heavy highway vehicle capital reserve fund, we were going to do away with this capital reserve fund and put all the money in the future.
Oh, you have those people quiet out there, please. Thank you, sorry.
And in the future, put all the money into the heavy equipment fund because of the wording. The wording doesn't allow you to buy other types of equipment in that fund. And I just know when selectmen are considering that in the future at all, we're going to, in perpetuity, have 2 capital reserve funds for this.
Referring to Article 22, is that the one?
Yeah.
When we created the heavy highway, it was specific for grader backhoe loader. It's plain and simple. That's why it's heavy highway, and that's why we have a truck, 2 separate ones. That's why it says heavy highway. It's specific, that was set up for loader, backhoe, or
I would just respectfully disagree with that. So.
Point taken. Any other questions, discussions on this, for this article? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 19. See if the town will vote to raise the appropriated sum of $95,000 for the purpose of the purchase of a new highway truck. Sum of $70,000 shall be withdrawn from the highway truck capital reserve fund, see Article 18, for this purpose, and the remainder shall come from the proceeds of the sale of the 2005 highway truck, approximately $25,000. Select in favor.
Moved. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 20. See if the town will vote to raise the appropriated sum of $30,000 to be placed in the State Aid Reconstruction Expandable Fund, 0058. Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is $9,440.92 for the purpose of repairing and maintaining state roads in Jackson. Select in favor.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 21. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $100,000 to be placed in the Road Reconstruction Capital Reserve Fund, 0064. Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is $5,180.34 for the purpose of road reconstruction of town roads. Select the favor.
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
And Trish, just what's the definition of road reconstruction? Or what is the extent of reconstruction?
It has consisted of reclaiming, like we did on Tin Mine, all the way to the top of Tyrol. And we did 900 feet on top of Black Mountain. And it consists of paving anything that we decide to do to the roads, whether it's shim paving, whether it's reclaiming, or whether we decide to box cut a short section.
So it's just about everything like this?
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Jerry Garcia. I would urge to support this article because our roads need the repairs. But I would also urge the selectmen to consider offsetting this by use of the unreserved fund balance as well. Because our tax rate is being significantly impacted. We keep voting to increase it and increase it and increase it. And this is one area where you have a one-time expense, because I believe this is designed to, last year we had $200,000, and with the intention of maybe using another $100,000 from the unreserved fund balance. And that's to basically catch up to the point where what we ordinarily appropriate for reconstruction and repair can hold us for the foreseeable future.
Questions? Comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 22. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $38,000 to be placed in the Highway Repair and Reconstruction Fund. MN Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is $4,777.95 for the purpose of highway repair and reconstruction. The sum of $38,000, which is contingent upon the town receipt of that amount from anticipated state highway block grant in the 2014-2015 year. Selectmen are in favor.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 23. See if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $30,000 to be placed in the Heavy Highway Vehicle Capital Reserve Fund, 0068. Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is $39.59 for the purpose of purchasing heavy highway vehicles. Select in favor. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Jim, let's see. Do you have a plan for the purchase of heavy equipment in the future? Like,
Yeah, we have a plan. It's nothing immediate, but it's just a matter of reason we're asking for some is so 10, 15 years down the road, 10 years, if we need a next loader or backhoe, next time around, we'll have some money to put towards it.
Which I think is a fair way to look at that, but there's other ways to appropriate money to have the equipment, such as financing. It also helps to kind of raise it year to year, make a down payment. But I think in a year that we're looking at some large expenses, maybe this isn't the year to appropriate money for this capital. And so it comes with a better long-term plan on what to do, on how to purchase the future equipment. So I'm going to make a motion to reduce this, amend this article to $5,000.
Okay, so you're making a motion to amend?
To amend Article 123 to appropriate the sum of $5,000.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. The selectman wanted to speak on this before you offered the amendment. I'm going to allow him to speak, and then we'll take questions on the amendment.
Well, I just wanted to offer some history between graders, backhoes, trucks, and cat loaders. We've purchased 27 vehicles over the last 38 years. So on average, you know, we're looking at 2 purchases every 3 years. So to replenish the account that has basically nothing in it was the goal. And so we don't want to see ourselves. I mean, we have a history of creating capital reserve funds for fire trucks and heavy equipment. And so because that account is basically zeroed out, that's what we decided to put in and we felt was prudent. Now, we had a number of discussions this year about financing these purchases in different ways, and there's been questions posed to us if it's the life of a 20-year life of a piece of equipment. Should we finance some of it? Should we finance all of it? Should we bond some of these vehicles that have larger lifespans? Eventually, we're going to need that $30,000 in some way, shape, or form, no matter how we end up purchasing our next piece of heavy equipment. So I would like to see the amount stay in, and over the interim of the next 12 months, take an in-depth look at some of our heavy equipment repairs. It's the same issue we're going to be dealing with down the road for Article 26, when we're talking about the fire department truck capital reserve. That gives us 12 months to offer different ways to look at how to purchase some of these equipment pieces that are going to have a longer shelf life.
Okay, we have an amendment and a second to the amendment to this article to reduce the amount to $5,000. Is there any questions, comments on the amendment?
Larry Garland. It says for the purpose of purchasing heavy vehicles. Can this money be used for major repairs like new transmissions or no repairs?
No. Nope.
Is there any other questions?
You have one out for repairs.
That's
Not out of this.
Not of that.
Not out of this.
Is there any other questions on the amendment? Okay. The way this works, we vote on the amendment. The amendment passes, we vote on the article as amended. If the amendment's defeated, we vote on the article as is presented. Everybody clear? Okay. On the amendment to reduce this article from $30,000 to $5,000, all those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The amendment's defeated. Okay, Article 23, as proposed and written for $30,000. Is there any other question or comment on that we haven't already heard?
Hi, Christine Thompson. I don't really have something about this. I just wanted to recognize the highway department because this is the last article to do with the highway department, and it's been a really rough year. So I appreciate the work they've done, and I just wanted to say that.
Okay. All those in favor of the signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 24. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 to be placed in the Police Department Equipment Expendable Trust Fund, 0051. Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is $8,729.82 for the purpose of purchasing, repairing, or maintaining police department equipment. Select in favor.
So moved.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 25. See if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $15,350 to be placed in the Police Cruiser Capital Reserve Fund, 0027. Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is $27,681.50 for the purpose of purchasing a new police cruiser. Select in favor.
So moved.
Second.
Moving second. Is there any questions or discussion?
Jeanette Hutton, what is the timing on purchasing a new cruiser? The timing when we're planning to purchase a new cruiser?
I would do it tomorrow morning, once today. All those cruisers were down Crest 2 times last month.
So we're talking within the next 12 months?
Oh, yeah.
All out.
Sure you haven't already purchased? Any other questions, comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 26. See if the town will vote to raise the appropriate sum of $100,000 to be placed in the Fire Department Capital Reserve Fund, 0003. Fund balance as of 12/31/13 is $259,173.04. For the purpose of purchasing a new fire truck. Selectmen are in favor.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Jerry?
Jay, how soon are you thinking of buying a fire truck? 2 years at the earliest, maybe 3. And what do they cost roughly? 2016, the estimated replacement cost is $475. Goes up 2% a year.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Trish. I just was wondering if there's going to be a restriction on the size of the truck, that it does fit in the existing fire department. No.
The problem we're facing right now is to replace this truck with pretty much the exact same thing. It is a little bit longer. It's actually going to be more maneuverable because we're going to a custom truck, which is the so-called real fire truck. You know, boxy looking fire truck. But it is actually more maneuverable, so we're going to maintain our maneuverability. But it is longer, and the reason is NFPA does not allow a truck to be built. The water level has to be at a certain height for stability. Our old truck is the water, it's a short truck, but the water's way high. Nobody that builds a fire truck can build it like that anymore. So that is making, everything that we need in the truck has to be a few feet longer. It's 33 feet instead of 27. So we are going to have to do a little bit of modifications to the garage. Hopefully we're going to be able to blow out the wall between a bay and the old highway garage. Working on engineered stuff for that right now, which money is coming from the Firefighters Association for that. Hopefully that's the way we go. If not, we got to look at extending the old highway garage just a little bit, which our plan hopefully is all money for making the station fit is going to come from fundraising through the association. So it won't be any taxpayers' money.
Okay.
Kathleen Doherty. I'm not against this, but one of the questions that Dave Mason brought up is our taxes are gonna go up really high. And maybe this might be a time to maybe not pass this year, maybe do it next year, just to keep our tax rates down. Just a question I thought I'd bring up.
I do agree with you, and if that's the way everybody wants to go, I'm fine with it. On the other hand, I mean, we just passed a lot of money that's, I'm not gonna say wasted, but there's a lot of basic money there that everybody had no problem spending.
I know.
But I do agree with you too, and it wouldn't be any problem to do that. The advantage to doing $100,000 this year and $100,000 next year, when we go to buy it, we have all the money. So that's, but if you guys want to drop it 50 and try to, I mean, if you drop it 50, what's that going to do to the tax rate per person, per thousand or whatever?
1250.
Huh?
1250. 12.5 cents.
Per thousand.
13 cents.
So what's that on a $300,000 home?
On a $300,000 home, that's going to be, it's going to be about $65.
Okay.
But
One of our challenges is that we really got a couple of needs in our fire department of back-to-back purchases almost. If we purchase a new fire truck in 2015, it'll be replacing engine 4, which is a 1989 model, and it's going to be 27 years old at that time. And we'll still have a engine 5, will be a 1995 model that will be ready for replacement before 2020. I think it was a 2018, 2019 we talked about. And at that point, that engine will be 26 years old. So we've got these engines that have a long lifespan, they're outdated. We really need to keep those engines no older than 25 years is the recommendation. So I think it's the same thing as some of the topics we talked about earlier, the heavy equipment purchases. I'm happy to add that one to the list of commitments, that we take a look through some sort of a study committee on different ways to purchase this, and maybe come back next year recommending partial financing or bonding, if that's what you want to do. I think we'll certainly look at our options.
Jerry,
again, I just looked at what's happening to the tax rate this year. And we do have the ability to use the unreserved fund balance to offset that. And again, we've got a big cushion there, and you could back it out of that. But when you look at a large purchase like this, or like a backhoe, or like a grader, inflation keeps up with the cost of financing. So to ask taxpayers from year one in a 15-year cycle to bump in $100,000, that's exorbitant for 1 year for a 25-year purchase. And what you're asking for is taxpayers from this year contributing $100,000. That unreserved fund balance isn't free money. That's money that taxpayers overpaid. So you're asking us to commit $100,000 for a 25-year purchase. That's a lot of money in 1 year. I mean, if we were raising money every year for 25 years, it wouldn't be $100,000 a year. I just think that that's just not fair to a single-year taxpayer. And that's why I look at something like that compared to road reconstruction. Those are two different things as far as how you might think about using the unreserved fund balance. And I think to be wise to how our tax rate is going to be impacted this year and how we're going to manage that unreserved fund balance, I would recommend reducing this down again to what our ordinary contribution is. Until we figure out that balance between financing versus actual capital reserve funding.
I haven't heard you say the word amendment.
I mean, I'll make another amendment. I'd like to amend Article 26 from $100,000 to $50,000.
Okay.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on an amendment.
That's mine.
Okay, you were going to do the same thing. All right. So if everybody's heard all these things, we have a motion to amend this article from $100,000 down to $50,000.
Yeah, and I might say, this isn't an argument about purchasing or not purchasing a fire truck. I think we see the need, we need it. It's just how we finance, how do we buy it? What's the most responsible way to do that? And if we think it is this amount, well, let's see what their unreserved fund balance is next year. And if we have room there, which we will, and it really won't impact that one way or the other.
Is there any discussion on the amendment?
Yeah, I'll only say that I appreciate your concerns, Jerry, but it really, in a certain sense, for planning, we're in the design phase for this truck right now. It's not like you go to McDonald's Motors and say, I want that. It takes a while to get it done. So not having the funding in hand, like it's supposed to be in hand, really limits us in how we can go about doing the work. You know, I say, you know, if we're gonna run a department like we have been, you have to get in the mindset of every 7 years we're in turnover. It's not a 25-year. If we were doing it every 25 years, that would be one thing, but you run 4 trucks. So if the functional life is 28 years, every 7 years you need to replace a vehicle. So it should probably be $60,000, $70,000 a year in capital reserve. I agree, it's probably pretty low in the first couple of years, which is why we're trying to get it up a little bit higher as we get close to the purchase.
Selectman like to speak on
But
this.
I also want to point out that we're not looking at this fund to purchase one fire truck in the next 2 years. We're looking at this fund to help us get our fleet up to date and in the form of 2 trucks within the next 6-7 years. That's the timing of the purchases that that's the hand we've been dealt with. And so it's really 2 trucks we're looking at here. So Peter makes a good point about having that money in the hands to be able to count on that. If we bump this up because $50,000 a year with these 2 purchases coming up, one right after the other, isn't going to be enough.
Any other questions? Jim?
So you're talking about $1 million in 7 years? Let me look at the numbers here.
Basically.
Yeah.
I would just add this for information also. Buying a fire truck for $500,000 round numbers, you don't go on the dealer's lot and pick the fire truck up. It's not like buying a highway truck or a cat loader or a police cruiser pretty much. They don't have those. They have to build them in 15 months, maybe.
I just think that bonding, so that the people who are paying for it are the people who are getting the benefit of it, as opposed to people who are paying for something that they may not live long enough to get the benefit from.
And that's the argument for bonding, no question about it. We can bond part of it. We don't have to bond all of it, we can bond part of it.
And I just think that this year, when we're looking at a 40% increase in the second half of this year's taxes, that this may not be the year to put $100,000 into that account.
Any other questions, comments?
Do you want me to answer the question?
Another point,
Just a second.
we're gonna spend $1 million on 2 pieces of equipment. We already have $250,000. We already have 25% of it put away. So we don't need $1 million, we need $750,000
That's for
over 7 years. It's $100,000.
Jay, you want to answer the question on?
Hold on.
You got more to go here, so let's.
Oh, okay, there it is, sorry. I'm tired.
Yeah.
It's been a long day, 2 days.
Call the vote.
2015, 16 is E4's replacement at 475. 2020, you're talking E5 at another 510. That 510 is the estimate for E5 in 2020 at 2% every year. That came right from the
$1
$1
million.
million by 2020.
All right. I'm going to call it, we have an amendment on the floor that's been made, motion's been made and seconded to amend this amount from $100,000 down to $50,000. Same as the last time. We vote on the amendment. If the amendment passes, we vote on the article as amended. If the amendment is defeated, we vote on the article. Everybody clear? All those in favor of amending this article from $100,000 down to $50,000, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. All right, left-hand side of the room. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, right-hand side, all those in favor. Yeah, I'm gonna need to see the no's this time. All those opposed, left-hand side. The amendment is defeated. We're voting on the original amendment. All those in favor of $100,000 capital reserve fund, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
So voted. Article 27. See if the town votes to raise appropriate $500 to Eastern Slope Airport Authority for the purpose of operating the Eastern Slope Regional Airport. Submitted by petition. Select in favor. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Hey, Trish again. Is the petitioner here today?
No.
I can speak to it. I was on the board for 18 years at the airport. They have about $175,000 a year budget. 80% of it is paid for by the town of Freiburg. If not a dime is contributed, the town of Freiburg has to pay for the whole thing. It's a regional airport. It has important economic and health and safety contributions to the entire valley. And $500 is a token payment by the town that shows that we are interested in that asset. The asset is somewhere around $100 million asset.
Peter?
I can only hope that I can speak contrary to Chief Henry here. I always speak against this article. You know, it's not the money, it's the principle of things. All the other nonprofits that come to us are evidence-based. They all tell us millions of dollars. And every year we hear about the economic benefit of the Eastern Slope Airport. I never really saw how it benefits this town. We went to some length to get the landing pad FAA designated up at the between the fire department and the town garage. I think we're pretty adequately covered, and we always hear about, you know, if something happens, there's an economic benefit, a health benefit. If that happens, I would love to be able to go back and say, well, then we'll support you, but it always seems to be very vague and not very descriptive about what they would use our very cherished $500.
Okay, Jay, and then
Question, Jerry, maybe you know, I just heard last week that Eastern Maine Aviation is done. Is Eastern Maine Aviation just like the garage part of it?
Yeah, they're what's called a fixed base operator,
Yeah.
FBO. They operate as a concession in a way. The airport is an FAA designated and supported airport, regional airport.
okay.
Kathleen Doherty, last year I know that Angus Badger, the doctor in town, recommended this for no other reason because they've had emergencies where they've had to fly people out of here, either to Maine or Boston or other areas. $500 is nothing compared to what goes on there. That if somebody had to have an emergency,
The airport is there for us to use, and we need to support it.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, and as I said last time, we don't use the airport for transporting patients. We use the helicopter. There's a heliport that goes to Maine Medical, goes to Boston, goes to Dartmouth. I have never in 35 years seen them transport a patient. I know Angus said he thought he remembered one patient that was transferred by plane. I've asked multiple doctors and ER nurses. No one ever remembers having a patient ever sent through that airport. I support having the airport there, but I think those who can afford to have planes, businesses that can afford to use that airport, should pay for it themselves, I think.
Any other questions, comments?
The helicopters that fly in and out of this area use some of the navigational aids and weather aids that are supported and operated by Freiburg Eastern Slope Regional Airport.
I've had the argument with Peter, as he's laughing at me, but it may not fly patients out of there, but you do have the possibility of, if you need refueling. I mean, if we call for a helicopter and the helicopter has to stage somewhere or wait or refuel for some wild reason, they have the capabilities to refuel if you have a forest fire and you needed multiple, or if you had a bad enough forest fire, you're gonna need, it's $500. It's definitely a good resource for us at the fire department.
Those helicopters use the approach guidance provided by that airport.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So ordered. Article 28, see if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $2,500 for the Gibson Center for Senior Services, Inc. for the purposes of supporting Jackson home delivered meals, congregate meals, transportation, and program services. Submitted by petition. All in favor?
Moved
and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? 29. See if the town will vote to raise the appropriating sum of $2,600 for Children Unlimited, Inc. for the purpose of supporting the Early Supports and Services Program, birth in 3 years. Submitted by petition. Selectmen are in favor.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any questions or discussion?
Where is this located?
Across from the skate rink and going.
Any other questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. 30, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,000 for Tri-County Community Action for the purpose of continuing services of the Fuel Assistance Program for the residents of Jackson. Submitted by petition. Selectmen in favor.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
I'd like to amend that to 6,000 like we tried last year. We didn't have any statistics then. I have them now. The 19 residents in Jackson served for a total of 16,447. And these are the figures for Tri-County.
Okay, we have a motion to amend this article to $6,000. Do I hear a second? There's a second. So is there any question on amending the article, on the amendment? Any discussion, question on the amendment? Okay, so we have the amendment to go from 3,000 to 6,000. We will vote on the amendment. Then we'll vote on the original article, or if it's defeated, we go. Any question? Anything else? No? Okay. All those in favor of amending this article from $3,000 to $6,000, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 30, as amended, to appropriate the sum of $6,000. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 31, see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $716 for Northern Human Services for the purpose of providing Jackson residents who are uninsured services at a sliding fee scale, submitted by petition, selectmen in favor. I have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion?
Do we need this now with Obamacare? Everybody has to be insured.
I don't have an answer. Does anybody get it? You don't have an answer for that one.
Is the person that put it in, is the petition article here?
I don't believe so. And these articles are very often submitted, and someone in town that is familiar with them speaks on behalf of them.
Mary English, I'd like to speak in favor of the article. It isn't just for uninsured people. Our daughter has had many years of services from Northern Human Services, as well as New Horizons for the development for the disabled. I think $716 is a small amount to pay for all that organization does for so many people in this area.
Is there any other questions or discussion?
This was amended by Dr. Angus Badger last year and amended to 15, so I think this is a good deal. He's not here for
Any other questions, comments? If not, all those in favor of $716 for Northern Human Services, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 32. See if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $1,336 for White Mountain Community Health Center for the purpose of providing Carroll County residents who are uninsured or underinsured medical care. Submitted by petition, select in favor.
So moved. Second.
Move and second. Is there any questions?
My name is Kevin Donahoe. Is this for Jackson residents or Carroll County residents that go to Jackson?
It would be for both.
It's for the county, and it would be, I believe they go to every town with some type of formulation to give assistance, but the funds are spread out through the town. So it's a percentage, and I don't know the formula, but as most of these articles are, they're throughout the entire community area, and each town has a number based on valuation, population, whatever. Formulas that they create. Any other questions? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 33. See if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $679 for starting point for the purpose of providing advocacy and support of victims of domestic and sexual violence and their children. Submitted by petition, select in favor.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Is there any questions? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 34. See if the town will vote to raise appropriate sum of $3,000 for the Jackson Chamber of Commerce for the purpose of contributing to the fireworks fund. Select in favor. So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? And I think if you remember, way back early in the evening, we deleted the $3,000 per se as an amendment, or gave the selectmen guidance to this, in place of having it voted on here, just as a clarification. Betsy?
For quite a while, that was privately fundraised for. Is there a reason why that should not continue?
I don't remember the history of that. I believe what happened was that it just dropped, and so many people wanted it, and it was good community, bringing people to the valley, to the town. I just thought it was appropriate to put it back in. I don't know what year that was, though.
Jared?
Betsy, it still is privately funded. It was a number of years ago where the town started to contribute as a good faith gesture to people that were privately funding it. So $3,000 is just a contribution to what the private funds. It's actually kind of nice having it though in a separate order. having it in the general budget doesn't really give the opportunity for people to at least weigh in. I like the idea of it as a separate line.
I would make a comment that $3,000 is not by a lot of fire. Any other questions? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted.
Article 35, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,000 for the Jackson Chamber of Commerce for the purpose of contributing to the holiday beautification project. Select in favor.
Moved and seconded, is there any discussion?
Does this mean that the lights will go all the way up and down the tree?
Only if you come down and supervise the installation.
Yeah. Color.
Oh, we don't do that.
Any other questions, comments? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Article 36. See if the town will vote to change the Bartlett Jackson ambulance bylaws to provide for grammatically gender neutral and change the number of required meetings to 2 per calendar year. The same article is being voted on in the town of Bartlett. Select in favor. Moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
How many year are they?
How many required meetings are there now?
I go every month. I go to the,
You're talking about the committee, not me. This is the committee, which is basically Bartlett and Jackson selectmen at this point. I didn't know the original charter and bylaws state differently than that. This is just the committee meeting. They have to have a minimum per year. Bartlett and Jackson selectmen that govern that town agency. It's a multi-town agency. It has nothing to do with the number of meetings that the actual ambulance service has on their own. I understand how it's worded, but that's what it is.
When we looked at the bylaws the last time we met, it didn't seem like there was anybody in the room that could recall the last time that the selectmen had gotten together strictly for that purpose on a quarterly basis. And we also, none of us was really able to identify a need for meeting quarterly. And when we reviewed the bylaws, we saw that we could correct that and adjust it so that both towns then will be in compliance with the bylaws, and then gender neutral language as well.
Any other questions? Sorry, Jim.
Jim Shield, has Bartlett already voted on this?
I don't know. I don't know that they had their, don't know when the town had meetings.
They're voting tonight.
They're voting tonight. Okay. I just, if it needs clarification, the ambulance service was formed by both towns as a town, multi-town service back in, I believe, 1980. And it's a bargain for you. We spent $6,400. Bartlett spends a little more than that as a help just in the event they don't. They're basically self-sufficient. It's a $100,000 a year operating cost, so it's a bargain and a half for us to have that program. This is just to make sure that those two town governing bodies do meet and discuss issues to help that agency go forward, no different than each town does with their own police department, or highway, fire department, highway departments, what have you. Jerry, and then...
Bill, I hate to do this because it's really not germane, but you brought it up. Bartlett doesn't appropriate more money than we do. We appropriate more money than they do.
Wow.
They fund it. They
I
fund
was
the
being
money,
politically correct there.
but they don't actually appropriate.
They don't appropriate it, they fund
We do. But this article is really just trying to make the use of the committee more practical. Right. We might as well just go forward.
You said it costs $100,000 to...
Close to
Where does the rest of the money come from?
revenue from calls.
Oh, okay.
And they're not to get on that, but as you all know, Medicare, Medicaid calls, people that get $1,000 ambulance call, if they get anything at all, is $100. State of Rhode Island, they can't even select them for people that
it really is a struggle to get that, but they are self-supporting pretty much. Any other questions? Okay, if not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So voted. Okay, Article 37. To act upon any other business which may legally come before this meeting, given under our hands this 11th day of February of the year 2014. We can act, this is only an advisory or discussion article. No money can be raised, no official vote can be taken. If there's something you want to discuss, this is the time to do it. Hearing, Ray?
Yeah. I think it'll be a great idea if Karen sends the tax bills out the last time by ambulance.
Okay, I'll give you the 65 bucks.
Any other, Sarah?
Come on, I'll give you the 65 bucks.
Yes, my name is Sarah Clemens, and I'd just like to thank the selectmen for the announcement of the bench that's going up in memory of Michael and Arthur. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for your thought.
Is there anyone else that has anything before I call for the next question? I just also, go ahead. I just wanted to say, for my benefit as moderator, I'd like to commend the selectmen. They've been a huge help, very cooperative, and it's been a very trying year for a lot of things for me and for all of us. And they've been doing a great job, and I commend them. All right, no other questions. I would ask for a motion to dissolve this meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? This meeting is dissolved. Thank you very much for all your patience.